Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
I'd like to begin by welcoming everybody to the September 14, 2020 Planning Board hearing for the town of Brookhaven. I'd like to begin with a roll call. Mr. Pete Zarcone,
I'm here.
Ms. Kelly,
I'm here.
Mr. Walutis,
Present.
Ms. Dunn, Ms. Dunn, Karen Dunn, Richard Smith,
Present.
Mr. Rose,
Present.
Mr. Chairperson, this is Karen Dunn. I'm here. I lost it for a minute.
yeah, I figured I was going to come back. Okay, I'm Vincent Pascal. Also, we have counsel to the planning board with us, Councilor Lee Raitt, Commissioner of the Planning Department, Ms. Beth Riley, and Secretary of the Planning Board, Ms. Eileen McCann. Ms. McCann, are there any items on the agenda that will not be heard this afternoon?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Item number 7, U-Haul moving in storage at East Patchogue. We'd like to be adjourned until October 19th.
All right, thank you. Do we have participants in at this time? Do we have 16 participants? For anyone wishing to speak on any of the items on the agenda this afternoon, please put next to your name as a participant the item number or the agenda name that you wish to speak on. This way we can call you in at the proper time. I'd like to begin with item number 1, Gateway Manor, Lot 55 at Manorville. Commissioner?
The application before you today is located at 3 Saddlebrook Lane in Manorville. The request is for an increase in clearing from 36% to 53%. The map was granted final approval prior to Pine Barrens legislation on July 6, 1987, with a 36% clearing limit imposed on the lot. Division of Environmental Protection has no objection to the increase in clearing limits based on prior approvals within the Gateway Manor subdivision. The Gateway Manor subdivision was constructed under A1 guidelines, and a clearing limit of 53% would be compliant with the Pine Barrens Comprehensive Land Use Plan. The division recommends the following conditions: allowance of a clearing limit increase from 36% to 53%, submit covenants and surveys to the Division of Environmental Protection prior to recording. The comments are last dated 7/20/2020, and there's 4 of them.
Thank you. Is the applicant present? Do we know if the applicant is present as a participant at this time?
Yes, I have Wood. Is that correct? That's the owner of the property.
You going to bring her in? I don't see.
Okay. Mr. Wood, you're here for number 1?
Mr. Wood, are you there?
I see him.
Yeah, we don't have audio.
He's driving in his car. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Wood, can you hear us?
Perhaps we can come back.
You want to come back to that, Counselor?
Let me, let's see. Hold on just a moment. I can let, I just got a message that Mr. Malgunaire is also here for this one. Let me find him. I'm sorry. Everyone just came in all at once. I don't see him. All right, can we move on to number 2 potentially and come back to number 1?
That's fine. Item number 2, Shiloh Manor, lot number 1 at East Patchogue.
Let me open that one up.
Yeah, I'll come back once we get the participant online for item number 1.
The application before you is a map of Shiloh Manor, Lot 1, 12 Gina Court in East Patchogue. The parcel is approximately 20,812 square feet. The parcel is zoned A1. The map was filed in August of 1988 with a 51% clearing limit and a 25-foot wide natural and undisturbed buffer along the westerly property line. The parcel was built under B1 residential zoning requirements, and no open space was dedicated to the town. The Division of Environmental Protection has no objection to a reduction of the 25-foot natural and undisturbed buffer based on the unreasonable narrowing of an already constrained parcel and its location outside of all critical environmental areas. DEP recommends a 75-foot wide natural and undisturbed buffer along the southerly property line. So that's over here, the screen. This is consistent with a 50-foot wide buffer along the southerly property line of the adjacent property to the southwest and would screen the property from potential continuation of the Sunrise Service Road north. DEP also recommends the elimination of the 51% clearing limit in favor of the 75-foot buffer. The elimination of the 25-foot side yard buffer and clearing limits and the application of the 75-foot rear yard buffer would increase the allowable clearing of the property from 51% to 78%. This Division of Environmental Protection has 7 recommended conditions: elimination of the 25-foot wide natural and undisturbed buffer along the westerly property line, eliminate the 51% clearing limit, replace that with a 75-foot natural and undisturbed buffer along the southerly property line, move the existing PVC shed and frame shed 3 feet from the property line. Those are right here on the screen. Submit amended covenants and a final survey prior to recording with Suffolk County.
Thank
And
you,
those are
Jen.
last dated 8/4/2020.
All right. Counselor, is the applicant present?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here.
Ms. Rome,
Yes, that's me.
can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes, I do.
Okay, have you received a copy of the staff recommendations that the commissioner just read?
No, I have not.
Okay, eliminate the left side buffer 25 foot. You're gonna implement or initiate a 75-foot buffer of natural vegetation on the southern side. You aware of that? And there's also
Okay, yeah.
there's also a couple sheds in the buffer that have to be removed outside.
Okay.
3 foot.
I no longer own the home anymore, so I have to figure out how I go about doing that. I didn't put unfortunately, everything that's there was there prior to my purchasing the home 15 years ago. My ex-husband purchased the home, and then when he got divorced, he signed the home over to me, and I unfortunately had to sell the house, and now I'm trying to make right all the wrongs that were there prior to my even living in the home.
No, we understand. So, I mean, basically what needs to be done is what the commissioner read off and what the staff recommendations are requiring you to do. So
Okay.
once that's corrected, then you move
So I
on to
just
the
have
next step.
to move the 2 sheds? Is that what you're saying? I have to ask the homeowners to move the 2 sheds and then have
2
another survey done?
And you need to file new covenants as well.
Is that going to be another $1,100 fee?
I don't know how much it costs to record in Suffolk County Clerk's office.
Oh, because I paid $1,096 for this relief of covenant.
Right, that's to the planning, town planning. Now you need to amend the covenants, the actual document that's recorded in the clerk's office in Suffolk County. So that's what you would need to do.
I guess Ms. Rome's question is also pertaining to the new survey showing the new clearing limits as well as the 2 sheds that need to be relocated at least 3 feet off the
Yes.
property line.
Yes, you would need to show that as well.
Yeah.
The sheds have to be 3 feet off the property line. So, I mean, it looks like they're pretty close. The other option is a Board of Appeals application, which is more costly.
Well, what if I ask them to remove the small PVC one? Because it's just something like you get at Home Depot,
Well,
And go ahead, I'm sorry.
well, if you remove it, then that eliminates one of your sheds. So, if it's not there, it won't have to be relocated once you take it off the property.
Right, and so my next step is to contact who to get all this information?
Brooks, who you've been dealing with in planning, Brooks Surgeon?
Okay, I will reach out to him by Monday next week. All this will be ready to go, or when should I reach out to him?
I think once we finish this afternoon, you can reach out towards the end of this week, end of this week, and he should have be able to help you, assist you with what necessary steps have to be taken.
Okay, and those are the only 2 items, right? Everything else is okay?
As far as I can see, that's what's on the recommendation list, yes.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, any board members have questions for Ms. Rome?
Just one thing, Mr. Chairman, this is Richard Smith. It looks like that the small shed is maybe just 8 inches, has to move 8 inches, and the other one has to move a little bit over a foot. So not far.
Okay.
It's not, I don't know, that might be easier to do than you think. You might have to have someone come and check it out.
Well, I think moving in sheds is part of it, but the other one is getting more proper paperwork necessary, but Mr. Brooks will be able to help Ms. Rome with that. Is
Okay.
that the only question by the board? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to close this public hearing and place this matter on the decision calendar.
Motion closed by Ms. Kelly,
Mr. Chairman, Board Member Pete Zarcone, I'll second that motion.
second by Mr. Zarcone. Mr. Walutis,
I vote aye.
Ms. Dunn,
Aye.
Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Rose.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Ms. Rome.
Thank you very much.
Counselor, do we know if Mr. Woods is back on item number 1?
I'm on item number 1 as well. Andrew Malguinera.
Are you representing Mr. Wood?
I am.
Okay, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes.
Did you hear the staff, you have a copy of the
did.
staff recommendations?
I heard.
Okay, and you in agreement with those?
We're okay with that.
You're okay with that? Is there any board members have any questions?
No.
Okay, may I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to close this public hearing and place the matter on the decision calendar.
Motion by Ms. Dunn,
Second, Richard Smith.
second by Mr. Smith, Mr. Zarcone,
I vote aye.
Ms. Kelly,
I vote aye.
Mr. Walutis,
Aye.
Mr. Rose.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Malganara.
Thank you. Thank you.
Item
Mr.
number,
Chairman, can I just, before
Oh, yeah.
you start again, I have a lot of people in the queue. I don't know if they're here from the public. I don't have anyone here at the moment for number 4. I don't know who's here for number 6, representing number 4 and 6. And if anyone else is here from the public, please let me know in the chat function.
yeah, it also mentions that they have to tell what an application or agenda item they're looking to participate on as well, okay?
Thank you.
Item number 3, South John Manor, lot number 4 at Center Reach.
This is the map of Sal John Manor Lot 4. The applicant requests an increase in clearing limits from 50% to 90%. The survey submitted depicts clearing currently at 80%. The parcel is approximately 20,343 square feet and is not located within any critical environmental areas. This parcel is currently Zone B residential. Based on the previous approvals within the subdivision and the location of the property outside of all critical environmental areas, the Division of Environmental Protection agrees with the applicant's request to increase the clearing limits. The Division of Environmental Protection recommends an allowance of clearing limits of 50% to 90%. All areas counted as natural shall not have sod and must be planted with natural stock. Submit an amended covenant and final survey prior to recording with the Suffolk County Clerk's Office. And this 4 conditions are last dated 8/24/2020.
Thank you, Commissioner. The applicant present,
Hey again.
Mr. Malganara, you're representing this application as well?
I am.
Okay, did you receive a copy of the staff comments?
I did.
You have questions or concerns? You agree with those items?
Absolutely. We're good.
Okay. May I have a motion on item number 3?
Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion to close this public hearing and place the matter on the decision calendar.
Motion to close by Mr. Rose,
Second, Richard Smith.
second by Mr. Smith, Mr. Zarcone,
I vote aye.
Mr. Kelly,
I vote aye.
Mr. Walutis,
Aye.
Ms. Dunn.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
And, if anyone is participating or in the participant to speak on any of the items that are listed on the agenda, please place next to your name the item number or agenda that you wish to speak on so we know when we can call you in to speak on that particular item. Item number 4, Zorn Boulevard at Yaphank. It's a miscellaneous matter.
Property is located on the north side of Horse Block Road on the east side of Zorn Boulevard. Property is zoned L Industrial 1 and is 2.48 acres. The applicant's request is to move the outdoor storage fence 5 feet away from the curb and the landscape void. Staff recommends approval with the following conditions. All work done in accordance with the site plan designed by Angelo Nicosia, and the outdoor storage fence shall be 6 feet high with solid tongue and groove style with no gaps between the slats. So if you look here, over here in this area, this is the fence with the landscaping. You can see on this, it's hard because I can't zoom in, that the fence is now located to the south side of the landscaping. And the previous approval had the fence located on the north side. And they've indicated that when they're doing snow removal, that it's hitting the fence. So that's why they would like to move it to the south side, and it would give them additional locations for snow.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is the applicant present, Counselor? Do we have Eileen Rowan representing the applicant? Counselor, Ms. Raitt?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Eileen Rowan is not here. I think that I have Jeff Volmuth for it. I'm at least going to bring him in to ask because I'm not here.
No, I'm actually here for the lofts. I made a mistake, Leah. I'm sorry.
Okay, so which number is that?
Which number was a lofts modification? Meadows.
Oh, the Meadows. Okay. I'll bring you in at that time, Jeff. Thank you.
Okay, I apologize.
That's okay. I'd rather bring you in to make sure. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, so we have the representative for item number 4.
Angelo Nicosia, is he in there, Lee? He's the other one on the.
No.
I'll leave it open. We'll go on to the next one.
I have someone here for 5. I don't have anyone here for number 4.
Okay, let's move on to 5. I'll come back to 4. The Meadows at Yaphank, Phase 1B at Yaphank.
Yes, I'm here. Back on again.
I just want to read into the record the applicant through the application, Mr. Bowman.
This is the Meadows at Yaphank Phase 1B. The requested modification is that the current design of the village green at the Lofts apartment community is not in conformance with the intent of the PDD zoning. The intent of the PDD zoning was to create an area with a sense of place where people can gather and enjoy the green space. Its current design is as a drainage basin, which prohibits the types of uses the PDD was looking to encourage. So up on the screen, you can see this is the green area, and here's all your drains. The staff analysis is that it agrees with the applicant that the intent of the PDD was create a village green, and therefore they're recommending approval of the revised village green stormwater design modification. So that's this area.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Bowman, please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, you want to speak on the application?
Sure. I actually thought Brian Ferrajari was going to be here. He's probably
Yes,
somewhere.
Brian's on the line as well.
Okay, he's going to probably be upset if he's not allowed to present, so let him present.
No,
Okay.
Is he going to speak?
Is he here for?
I'll be happy to, Mr. Chairman.
There you go.
You're not an attorney, are you?
No, I'm not.
Okay, well, I can't see you, but raise your right hand. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Okay, you want to present the application to the board?
Sure, no problem. Good evening or good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Brian Ferrajari from AVR Realty, representing the applicant. With me this evening is Jeff Volmuth from the firm of Volmuth and Brush, who prepared the plan revision before you. As you know, the Phase 1B of the Meadows at Yaphank, consisting of 295 apartment units, is currently under construction. This phase contains a vital element of our PDD concept, that being the Village Green. During construction, it became apparent that this design of the Village Green was not conducive to its original intent under the PDD zoning, which is to provide a sense of place for people to gather and enjoy open green space. In its current design as a drainage basin, the Village Green does not present an attractive place for people to get together outside of their apartments. In an effort to correct this, we asked Volmouth and Brush to design an alternate drainage system so that the Village Green can be raised as a level service, creating an attractive public space while remaining compliant with the town's drainage requirements. This revised plan is the basis of our application this evening. We have reviewed the staff analysis prepared by planning, are in an agreement with their findings. That concludes my presentation. Jeff Volmouth and I are both here to answer any questions the board might have.
Jeff, you want to add anything to that?
Only that the project will continue to provide a full 8 inches of rainfall storage. The extra pools just switches it from being at-grade flooding to being contained within the leaching pools.
Where is this in reference to the ball field? It's presently.
The ball field is located to the west-southwest on the about a couple hundred feet away, more than a couple hundred, probably 1,000 feet.
Completely across the boulevard.
Yeah, across the boulevard on the other side of Yaphank Woods.
All right. Any board members have questions?
A couple of questions, Mr. Chairman. This is Richard Smith. What is the dimensions of that green area?
Hang on a second. I have the plan. Just give me a moment.
And is it flanked by roadways that have inline parking along the sides of it?
The east side is flanked by parking. Both sides have parking, parallel parking along the side of it. It used to be a relatively shallow overflow. It wasn't a recharge basin. It was a surcharge area. So to explain the design, when the loss was originally designed, we were limited to 5 inches of storage subgrade, providing 3 inches of surcharge flooding at grade. The 3 inches was accommodated in this low point. So we're replacing that 3 inches with leaching pools instead. And that allows us to fill the low point. Before, at the time, that's what staff wanted. Staff didn't want to let me provide the full 8 inches subgrade, but there's really no reason not to. And in this case, there are a number of reasons to change the way it was graded and flatten it out so that people can use it.
Looks like the area is somewhere like 60 or 70 feet by 200 feet or something like that.
I don't have an engineering scale. Give me a second.
It's not a big deal.
Mr. Smith, the question you asked, you inline parking.
I meant, yeah, the parallel parking.
Okay.
You said it correctly, yes. Like the 32 stalls.
It's approximately 100 feet by 210 feet. So 100 by 210.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry for going off screen.
Any other questions by the board? May I have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to close this public hearing and place the matter on the decision calendar.
Motion by Ms. Kelly,
I'll second that motion. This is Board Member Pete Zarcone.
second one is Zarcone. Mr. Walutis,
I vote aye.
Ms. Dunn,
Aye.
Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Rose,
Aye.
chair votes aye, motion carries 7-0. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Counselor, do we have the representative for Zorn Boulevard with us yet?
No, I don't have anyone here for number 4 at the moment.
Not available. Okay, let's move on to item number 6, Silas Carter Road at Manorville.
The location is on the west side of Silas Carter Road, 428 feet north of Jerusalem Hollow Road, which is not open. The proposal is to construct a 400 linear foot of Silas Carter right-of-way to access 4 single-family homes on 10 acres. The applicant seeks road improvement approval for this right-of-way, including paving, drainage, curbing, and street lighting. Silas Carter is a paper street that has been extended over time and is currently cleared as a dirt road. Staff recommends approval of the revised plan dated 8/12/2020 with 12 conditions, including a bond submission last dated 8/25/2020.
Thank you, Commissioner. I see Vincent DeCanio. Are you representing the applicant?
Yes, I am the applicant, yes.
Okay. All right, please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, you want to speak on the application?
Well, we've had comments and it's been going on for quite a couple of years now, so we agree with all of the input from planning. And I think it's straightforward, and I have an email from Eileen stating the same. So I'm in agreement with it as per the plan of Kenneth Bank.
Okay, you also already have BZA approval on this, correct?
Yes, I did. That was December 6th.
Okay. All right, if there's any participants who wish to speak on these items or the application agenda, please put next to your name the item number or agenda that you wish to talk on, so we know when to bring you in. Is there anyone else like to speak on this application from the public?
No.
Nobody? Okay, any board members have questions for Mr. DeCano?
Yes.
I just have one question. It's not really for Mr. DeCanio, but our agenda does not mention secret declaration. Will we need one when we do the decision?
Yes, there is a neg deck.
Okay, it's not on the agenda. That's only, okay, thank you.
Yes, there was a neg deck. I agree.
There was a neg deck done already?
I see it on my agenda. Maybe it was in the revised one.
Okay.
I don't-
Right.
Okay. No other questions by the board? May I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to close this public hearing and place the matter on the decision calendar.
Motion closed by Ms. Dunn.
Second by
Second
Richard
by
Smith.
Mr. Smith. Mr. Zarcone.
I vote aye.
Ms. Kelly.
Oh, yeah.
I vote aye.
Mr. Walutis.
Aye.
Mr. Rose.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Buchanan.
Thank you.
Item number 7 is being held to October 19th. Item number 8, Yapank Auto Storage Facility at Yapank. Once again, anyone who wishes to speak on this application, please put next to your name on the item number or agenda name that you wish to speak on, so we know when to bring you into the hearing. Commissioner?
This is a combined public hearing for the secret draft environmental impact statement and site plan with special permit for vehicle storage facility with site improvements, including pavement, drainage, landscaping, fencing, and buffers. It's located on the west side of County Road 101, 2,064 feet north of Horseblock Road in Yapank. It's zoned L1 industrial, and it is 35.67 acres. The applicant proposes to construct a vehicle storage facility on vacant industrial property with site improvements. The application also includes a special use permit for outdoor storage and variances. Subject property includes a vacant church building with parking located on the southeast portion of that site that will be separate by fencing and buffering. The site proposes the clearing of approximately 23.6 wooded acres of the overall 35.67 acre site for use as the automobile storage facility. There is no building proposed, and site improvements include, I'm just going to open up the site plan. Include an asphalt paved storage area with perimeter curb, or stormwater drainage collection system and on-site recharge basin as per town standards. A right turn in, right turn out, single access drive on Sills Road, and an 8-foot high chain link fence with barbed wire around the perimeter of the vehicle storage area. The plan proposes a 150-foot natural buffer provided to the north and a 100-foot natural buffer along the frontage on Bellport Road, a 100-foot landscaped and natural buffer along the frontage of Sills, and a 50-foot natural buffer along the remaining property boundaries. Proposed land coverages upon completion would be as follows: driveways, buildings, and pavement, 21.47 acres of 60%, natural wooded, 10 acres, which is 28.2%, lawn and landscaping, 4.14%, 11.67%. The subject property and the surrounding area are zoned L1. The property is adjacent to Bellport Avenue on the west, the Long Island Railroad tracks to the north, Baseball Heaven to the northeast, and Sills Road to the east, and adjacent to the south is the Suffolk County Water Authority wellfield and storage tank and vacant wooded industrial property. It is noted that the north side of the railroad tracks are the rear yards of 9 residential dwellings fronting on Long Island Avenue. There is a special permit. The criteria is contained within 85-569, and there are 12 of them. The applicant also seeks 2 planning board variances: minimum natural landscaped area in the front yard, 15% of the site required, 7.3% provided. Parking in the front yard setback, 100 foot required, 50 feet provided at the church parking site. Vehicles stored at the site will be repossessed or insurance salvage cars delivered to the site from towing companies, garages, car dealers, residences in the 5 boroughs of New York City and Nassau and Suffolk. Prior to the vehicles being delivered to the site, they will first be held off-site between 40 and 30 days. The site is adjacent to the Suffolk County Water Authority property, which contains the Patchogue Yaphank wellfield. The applicant proposes mitigation, including paved storage areas and a Contec hydrodynamic separator system with drainage catch basins that would collect debris and contaminants coming from the autos after limited treatment would continue into the recharge basin where the stormwater would be recharged into the ground. The Suffolk County Water Authority has serious concerns regarding the auto storage facility and its proximity to the wellfield recommended denial. Please refer to the Suffolk County letter dated November 8th, 2009. A traffic impact study was included in the DEIS. The Yaphank Civic Association has submitted a letter of objection. A draft environmental impact statement was prepared and accepted as complete on Monday, October 7th, 2019. Public hearing was set for Monday, November 18th at 4 p.m. to consider the DEIS. Due to comments from a November 8th, 2019 letter from Suffolk County Water Authority during the DEIS comment period and prior to the public hearing, the application was adjourned to a later date. And this board adopted this board requested that a draft supplemental environmental impact statement be prepared. Since the 2019 DEIS, the proposed preliminary site plan has been revised, specifically concerning the stormwater runoff management system and treatment process to provide enhanced stormwater treatment for the removal of a broad range of potential contaminants. So if you'd like, I have up the site plan. I have the zoning map. And any other documents that you need me to put up, just let me know.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. And going along with the letter from Suffolk County Planning, we received a number of letters. Ms. McCallion, if you're online, can you make those letters part and parcel for the public record? I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so I'd like to make all of those records, the emails and everything, that all public inquiries into this application part of the public record. Okay, is the applicant present?
Yes, he is, Mr. Chairman. Keith Archer, Harris, Bloom and Archer, 445 Broad Hollow Road, Melville, New York. I'm representing the applicant.
Good afternoon, Counselor.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Good to see you again.
Yeah, nice to see you as well. Hope you're safe and enjoying the rest of your summer.
You too, sir.
Okay, now you can begin to entertain us.
Thank you very much. As I indicated, we represent the applicant in this request for approval, as the commissioner so aptly described. of a 21-acre automobile storage facility on approximately 35 acres of land industrially zoned, fronting on, bounded by Bellport Avenue to the west, the Long Island Railroad tracks to the north, Sills Road to the south, and the Baseball Heaven facility to the east in Yaphank. The property is presently vacant other than the former Fishermen Church situated along the Sills Road frontage. The applicant's specific request, as Commissioner Riley indicated, is for a special permit site plan approval for the proposed facility that is going to be supposed to be utilized for the short-term storage of vehicles that have either been involved in motor vehicle accidents or repossessed, but are otherwise owned by the insurance company and are awaiting online auction. And those cars are auctioned online. There's no auction at the site. In fact, there are no live auctions. Minor relief is also being requested from the town's land development regulations. After my presentation, Mr. Chairman, offering testimony on behalf of the application will be David Wortman of VHB Engineering, who will describe the comprehensive scope of the draft environmental impact statement and the supplemental environmental impact statement prepared by VHB for this application. I would point out that the final scope that was adopted and issued by the town for the DEIS identified areas of potential environmental impact, including potential groundwater impacts based upon the project's proximity to certain Suffolk County Water Authority wells, and described the project's compliance with the special permit requirements for outdoor storage as set forth in section 85-107 of the Brookhaven Town Code, and the minor relief requested from the town's land development standards. Following Mr. Wortman, with the board's permission, Suzanne Silverstein and professional engineer David Baracavoli of VHB will describe the site plan that is before this board and how the site plan has been revised over the course of this application, particularly after the November 8th letter from the Suffolk County Water Authority, which resulted in the adjournment of the application. Mr. Baracavoli will point out that the site is going to be well insulated. There will be extensive buffering on all sides, including 150 feet of natural buffering south of the railroad tracks, 100 feet of natural vegetation along Bellport Avenue, and similar buffering along the other sides of the property. Mr. Baracavoli will also point out, as I think Commissioner Riley has, that the only access to this site will be via the driveway, two-way driveway on Sills Road, so that all vehicles entering and exiting the site will do so on Sills. Following Mr. Baracavoli, James Neary, who is a professional engineer and director of water resources for H2M, and who's an expert in the field of water supply and water treatment, will discuss the current state of groundwater protection and the proactive approach being taken by the applicant in protecting the groundwater and the nearby Suffolk County Water Authority well field located to the southeast of the project site. I previously submitted Mr. Neary's resume for the record, just to indicate his level of expertise. And as a point of information, it will be described in more detail by Mr. Neary. H2M currently performs water quality engineering services for many water districts on Long Island and of course other businesses. Following Mr. Neary's testimony, Dr. Stephen Woodard, who's president of ECT2 and who's also a professional engineer, will describe the proposed enhanced stormwater treatment processes that were designed by his firm for this project in response to the concerns raised by the Suffolk County Water Authority. Dr. Woodard is the founder and president of ECT2, a company that develops new technology for the removal of contaminants in water. I've also submitted Dr. Woodard's resume for the record and note that he received a Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Environmental Engineering from Worcester Polytechnic Institute, a master's of Science and Civil Engineering from the University of Maine, and a PhD in Civil and Environmental Engineering from Purdue University. Dr. Woodard, as I mentioned, is also a professional engineer who has authored several articles and publications, including journals, on the development and implementation of novel and sustainable technology to treat emerging contaminants. Following Dr. Woodard's testimony, everybody will be fairly short. I realize we don't want to take up more of your time than necessary. Following Dr. Woodard's testimony, Patrick Lenihan, a professional engineer and traffic expert with VHP Engineering, will describe the applicant's extensive traffic impact study for this project and the relatively few trips that will be entering and exiting the site during the peak hour period. I also submitted Mr. Lenihan's resume for the record just to indicate his level of expertise. And finally, Michael Lynch, who is the applicant's real estate expert, will offer testimony regarding conformity of the proposed use and the site with the applicable special permit criteria and the relief from the land development regulations requested for this application. Mr. Lynch will be submitting a report for the record. I apologize, I thought it would be in time for the hearing, but we'll submit it right after his testimony. Mr. Lynch's resume has also been submitted for the record, just to indicate that he's been accepted as an expert by all of the boards in the town of Brookhaven, as well as other boards throughout Long Island. I want to just add something for a perspective here. So, as the board is aware, on February 4th, 2019, the project was issued a positive declaration pursuant to the SEQA regulations, which required that the applicant prepare the DEIS that was submitted for the project. And then following the acceptance of the DEIS, a public hearing was scheduled, and as Commissioner Riley indicated, it was adjourned based upon receipt of a November 8th letter from the Suffolk County Water Authority opposing the application, although the Suffolk County Water Authority had previously indicated in a letter to this board their support for the application based upon the mitigation that the applicant had agreed upon, particularly the installation of these hydrodynamic separators, which will be described not by me, but by our experts. After the receipt of the November 8th letter by the board and the adjournment of the hearing, the applicant prepared a supplemental draft environmental impact statement. And that's the heart, I think, of this hearing, because what that SDIS proposed, while it covered additional areas that were raised in terms of fire protection and the likes, it proposed a system that's going to be described by Dr. Woodard that is essentially a stormwater treatment facility that is going to be installed on the site at the applicant's expense, maintained by the applicant during the operation of this property. So part of the reason for the applicant's proposal was there was also a heightened level of community opposition to this application, as evidenced by some of the letters that came in, which also was a compelling reason for the applicant to propose this treatment facility so as to satisfy all of the concerns raised by not only the Suffolk County Water Authority, but by residents within the community. And I think I probably said enough. And what I'd like to do is ask James Neary from H2M to basically briefly describe for the board what the state of the technology and the status of groundwater protection, particularly emerging contaminants, are. And then following Mr. Neary, Dr. Woodard will describe for the board the treatment facility, the stormwater treatment facility that's being proposed for this site. So with the board's permission, I would ask that James Neary be permitted to address the board.
All Council, I'd just like to add a couple things. Are any of the associates or your colleagues that are going to represent the application this afternoon, they also attorneys or counselors? Are they? Are they attorneys? Any of the representatives that you mentioned? I'll just ask them as they speak, so I know when to swear them in. And the other thing I'd like to state for the record, it's quite impressive resume on each one of your colleagues. However, we're not going to take statements as expert witnesses. We're just going to take as participants on the application. We don't accept expert witnesses on this. This is not a court of law, it's a public hearing. So with that being said, we'll bring in James Neary.
We understand that, Mr. Chairman. We were just simply submitting it to show the level of expertise.
No, it's quite impressive, but once again, I just want to put on the record that we don't accept expert witnesses on this.
Commissioner Riley already informed me of that.
Okay. So, Mr. Neary, is he?
Yes, I'm here. Good afternoon. Radio check. Everybody can hear me?
Yeah, good radio check. Please raise your right hand.
Mr. Chairman, since everyone's there, you want to swear everyone in at once?
Yeah,
Anyone who's
yeah,
not an attorney?
Yeah, that's where I was going, leading to it, but I thought I'd like to see them. But if everyone who's representing this application, please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, to help you God?
I do.
Okay, Mr. Neary.
All right. Again, thank you for the planning board for allowing me to present here today. Again, my name is James Neary. I'm a New York licensed professional engineer. I'm also Senior Vice President of Water at H2M Architects and Engineers based in Melville, New York. In my capacity as Division Manager for the Water Resources Group, I supervise approximately 60 water professionals who are responsible for providing drinking water to the communities of New York and especially Long Island. My firm has almost 90 years of serving communities in exactly this capacity. As Mr. Archer said, I would bring some background of the state of water in New York and the nation. The United States EPA or Congress enacted the Clean Water Act in the mid-'80s, and the EPA created a process which every 5 years does a survey nationwide of water suppliers to understand if various chemical compounds present in our environment are being found in our water supplies. Unfortunately, the last round of that survey identified 3 compounds specifically, 1,4-dioxane and perfluorinated compounds, PFOA and PFOS, specifically have been found in Long Island waters. Many of you may have seen the articles in Newsday and read the various write-ups of the Grumman plume and numerous other plumes around Long Island. 1,4-dioxane and these perfluorinated compounds, they fall into a category of compounds that we refer to as emerging contaminants. And Suffolk County's letter specifically asked about these compounds and what the facility's capacity was to deal with those. Unfortunately, the federal government and EPA has not yet engaged on some of these compounds because they are too new. But New York State in 2018 established a group called the Drinking Water Quality Council, whose members were charged with evaluating if the New York State regulations were appropriate in advance of federal health effect studies. After several months of investigation and consideration, the Drinking Water Quality Council established proposed regulations for the compounds 1,4-dioxane and PFOA and PFOS. Just a short time ago, on October 25th, 2020, Governor Andrew Cuomo enacted those regulations and set into law a maximum contamination level for 1,4-dioxane at 1 part per billion and perfluorinated substance PFOA and PFOS at 10 parts per trillion. These are some of the lowest levels regulated in the nation, and New York State has been very aggressive in respect to protecting our drinking water. That's the background on what we're talking about with emerging contaminants, but I want to be very clear. We currently have no expectation that these compounds are or will be present in this facility's stormwater. But the history shows the kinds of concerns that Suffolk County reasonably brought up relative to water quality. And it sets the stage for how we believe the proposal presented to the planning board proactively addresses these issues, albeit with no regulatory requirement to provide this level of response. The developers team has engaged H2M and our firm's experience with these issues. My role has been to advise this team using the water supplier's frame of reference to recommend solutions. As Mr. Archer described, our initial consultation included the suggestion of hydrodynamic separators, which are really chambers that block the petroleum-based compounds that we typically see on all paved areas. Additionally, we worked closely with the Suffolk County Water Authority to site an intercepting monitoring well on the southern edge of the property that was meant to safeguard and monitor for any compounds leaving the site long-term, more of an advanced warning system. As the board has recognized, the follow-up correspondence from Suffolk County Water that preempted the last hearing expressed concern about these emerging contaminants and how the developer site would address these. In regards to emerging contaminants, the challenge this project faces is there are no current regulations regarding the discharge from a paved area that effectively address emerging contaminant concerns. The contaminants are too new. The development cycle has not yet had to address these concerns, and so there isn't any direction that comes from code or guidance that would inform how we would deal with this. In the absence of codes and regulations surrounding emerging contaminants, we were forced to suggest what we believe is a very defensive approach. As Mr. Arthur mentioned, we are basically treating a stormwater treatment system to intercept the rainwater and runoff flow from all of the paved surfaces, and we will be treating all of this water to essentially drinking water standards. This is unprecedented in site planning, but we thought given the facility's location and the intense public concern, this was appropriate. And just for the point of the record, it was the same technology that H2M and the Suffolk County Water Authority use for dozens of public drinking water facilities here on Long Island. We've reviewed the process proposed by ECT2 in our role, and we believe that the process is done to the highest level of environmental stewardship in protecting the drinking water that we all depend on. In closing of my portion, I believe the developer has committed in the proposal to going above and beyond the minimum code. And actually, I would look forward to a future where all developments were held to this level of stormwater management. If it pleases the board, I will now turn it over to Dr. Steve Woodard, president of ECT2, to describe the detailed process.
Actually, James, I think.
Counselor,
Okay,
Mr. Archer, I think what we're going to do is I'll hold off all board questions until all of the associates completed their testimony, okay? I have a couple of questions for Mr. Neary, but I'll wait until we complete with everyone. So who's the next, Mr. Lenahan?
Actually, yeah, Steve Woodard here, and like to thank the board for allowing me to testify. The draft supplemental EIS includes a process flow diagram as figure 2 on page 7 of the DSEIS. If it would be possible to pull that up, I think it would be helpful. If not, that's okay too. As mentioned, I'm the president and CTO of ECT2, which stands for Emerging Compounds Treatment Technologies. We develop and commercialize treatment systems for emerging and other difficult to treat contaminants from groundwater, wastewater, stormwater, drinking water, all around the globe. Some of the sites include defense bases, Superfund sites, industrial manufacturing facilities, landfills, and drinking water supplies. And we've treated well over 1 billion gallons of water without a single exceedance. And most of the waters that we encounter and treat are much more difficult to treat, much more challenging than the water that we'll encounter here on this project. So based on our understanding of the design basis, we're combining multiple treatment technologies to be operated in series, starting at the head end with the more simple technologies and then proceeding to the more sophisticated. And the system is conservatively sized and is fully redundant. And so we've done these two things to ensure achievement, consistent achievement of the desired treatment objectives. So now I'm going to walk you through the treatment process, starting at the head end. And these processes that we're combining into the grand process are all proven technologies, not pie in the sky. These are very well proven technologies. We start at the head end with simply getting the contaminants out that are not dissolved. Oils, hydrocarbons from diesel, gasoline, motor oil, hydraulic fluids that are not dissolved will coalesce, and then they'll float to the surface because they're lighter than water, they're less dense than water, where they're skimmed off for off-site removal. Sand and other particulate matter that are heavier than water will settle to the bottom of the oil-water separator and be removed accordingly. And so the next step after this relatively straightforward oil water separator is another pre-treatment step, and we're using 2 backwashable granular activated carbon filters. Basically what these are enhanced filters. So being a filter, they're going to remove any particulate matter that was not removed in the upfront oil water separation stage. They're also going to remove some of the residual hydrocarbons, including the oils and gasoline and diesel that may have made it through. Unwanted fouling agents like iron, TOC will be removed. And then since these 2 backwashable carbon filters are going to be collecting particulate matter, we need to backwash them on a somewhat routine basis, but that's all automated. So there are pressure gauges that measure the increasing pressure over time as particulate matter builds up on the filters. When it hits a certain pressure, it initiates a backwash with clean water that then removes or strips the particulates. They're then settled and thickened for offsite removal. We have yet another layer of filtration after the backwashable carbon filters. And this is an array of fabric filters that have a finer mesh and remove any of that fine particulate matter that may have made it through the upfront stream. So these pre-treatment steps are all to protect the heart of the treatment system, which is downstream, which starts with 4 fixed bed granular activated carbon vessels. And we have 4 because we have 2 trains in parallel, with each train having a lead and a lag. So we're talking about multiple layers of redundancy. And these carbon vessels have a special type of carbon that is designed to remove PFAS, which is one of the emerging contaminants that James talked about. And so adsorption is the mechanism that's employed here. So not only do the PFAS compounds get removed, other dissolved compounds that might have passed through the backwashable carbon filters, like hydrocarbons, will be removed. And the PFAS, like I said, is going to come out, and any other dissolved contaminants. So lots of redundancy, but then we have yet another layer of protection following the 4 fixed bed carbon vessels in the form of advanced oxidation. And for advanced oxidation, we're using something that's commonly used to destroy 1,4-dioxane. And what it is we take ultraviolet light and combine it with hydrogen peroxide, which forms very highly reactive oxidants that we call hydroxyl free radicals. And what they do, 1,4-dioxane is very recalcitrant. It's a difficult compound to destroy. And when it comes into contact with hydroxyl free radicals from this advanced oxidation system, the free radicals destroy it and break it down into its safe elements, things like water, carbon dioxide. So it's no longer toxic. So anything else that might be recalcitrant that's going to make it through all these layers upstream of the advanced oxidation process will be destroyed. And what we have is extremely clean water coming out of the tail end of our system. So really, when you look at the system as a whole, it's state of the art, and it's designed for current known contaminants concern, as well as into the foreseeable future, and consistently achieve the treatment levels required. On top of that, the system is fully automated, or will be fully automated for remote operations, and it will be incorporated into my company's ECT2's remote operations network, which covers systems around the globe, many systems that operate 24/7. In addition to being remotely operated, and it will have leak detection, it'll have cameras, and infrared cameras. There will also be routine and periodic site visits from licensed operators that will have an O&M task list, and they'll be taking samples to make sure that the system is functioning properly. So I'm wrapping it up here. The bottom line now is that you have the right team here. You got the team with experience. We understand the removal of both the mundane contaminants all the way to the exotic emerging contaminants, and we have a lot of experience with doing that. We have a spotless compliance record. We've like I said, treated over 1 billion gallons and have had no environmental exceedances of any permit limits whatsoever. We also have the right treatment system. It's conservatively sized. It has the right unit operations and it has a lot of redundancy built into it. So bottom line is we're going to be producing very clean water above the standard of care, and it's going to be drinking water that comes out the tail end of this. So that is my presentation. I'm going to hand it off now to Pat Lanahan.
No, actually, I think what we'd like to do is like to hand it off to Dave Wortman, who was the preparer of the DEIS, and then to Dave Butticavalli, then to Pat Lanahan, and then to Mike Lynch.
All right, Counselor, before we move on, I wanted to wait till the end, but I have a quick question for Mr. Woodward. What safeguards have you put in place to protect the unexpected, like some of these automobiles, I understand, catch fire occasionally, you have fire retardant chemicals that are used on it. Is that something that this treatment facility is capable of handling?
Absolutely. We have, the system is going to have infrared cameras, first of all, to detect any fires. And the fire retardant chemicals that are used are exactly what the 4 vessels with granular activated carbon in them are designed to treat. And so we actually have the only patented process in the world for using regenerable products, sustainably treating these fire retardant chemicals.
Yeah, but the other safeguard you have to be concerned with is these fire retardant, when they spray this foam or whatever agent they use on these fires. I mean, there's splashover outside the boundaries of the lot line as well. So, I mean, how can you contain something like that in case of an accident? What precautions could be put in place?
Right. My scope of services is to focus on to treat the water that is collected and brought to the treatment system. I'm gonna hand anything that happens outside of that boundary, I'm gonna hand off to one of my colleagues here.
Okay, but there's also a good possibility that there could be something that's not contained that could spill over. So we'll let your colleague address that.
Yeah, it's not my field of expertise, but yes.
Mr. Chairman, that will be addressed, and that if the board permits, I'd like to ask David Wortman from VHB, the preparer of the DIS, to describe the broad scope of the DIS. And also, I think Mr. Wortman can respond to your question. And I'll also point out that we were in contact with the Yaphank Fire Department, VHB was, and the Yaphank Fire Department had indicated that they were able to cover whatever resources need to be, if they are, need to be dispersed to this property.
Okay.
So if Dave Wortman can now describe the DEIS and the SDEIS, that would be great.
That would be my pleasure. Hi, good afternoon, Chairman Pascal, members of the board. My name is David Wortman, and I am the Senior Environmental Manager for VHB in Hauppauge, New York. And as you're aware, this is a public hearing on the site plan and special permit applications for the proposed facility, as well as a hearing on the draft environmental impact statement, or DEIS, and draft supplemental environmental impact statement, or DSEIS. I'll take a moment to just briefly address the environmental review of the proposed project pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SEQRA, for which this board is the lead agency. Following the issuance of the positive declaration, VHB prepared a DEIS on behalf of the applicant to address a comprehensive range of potential environmental impact topics in accordance with your final scope, including potential impacts upon water resources, which we've heard a little bit about already, land use and zoning, ecological resources, traffic, which we'll hear a little bit more about shortly, aesthetics and visual resources, cultural and historic resources, noise and vibration, public health and safety, and climate change. And the DEIS was accepted as complete and adequate for public review by this board in October 2019, and in January 2020, reacting to those comments we talked about from Suffolk County Water Authority, which had previously approved a version of the project, this board issued an additional positive declaration, which then required the preparation of the draft supplemental EIS to further address concerns specifically regarding the protection of groundwater and fire safety. In accordance with the second positive deck, the DSEIS comprehensively evaluated those topic areas, and a notice of completion was issued in July, accepting now the draft supplemental document as complete and adequate for public review, which brings us here today. The results of the various detailed analyses in both the DEIS and the DSEIS indicate that the proposed action has incorporated measures to minimize or eliminate potential impacts to the point that it would not be expected to result in a significant adverse environmental impact. An important part of what we're here to do tonight is really, rather than to present, is also to gather substantive comments on those analyses that were contained in the draft EIS documents, which in accordance with the secret process will then be addressed systematically in a final environmental impact statement, or FEIS. So to that end, I'm not going to attempt to summarize all the results of those various analyses. They're available to the board. They've been distributed by the town to all the involved agencies and interested party, and they are readily available to the public, etc. Instead, I just want to briefly highlight some of the key aspects of the DEIS and the DSEIS. First, with regard to land use and zoning matters. The subject property is located within an expansive L Industrial 1 zoning district, which extends for long distances to the east and south and west and northeast of the subject property, encompassing much of the Yaphank area of the town of Brookhaven. And the district is extensively developed with numerous industrial uses, including various existing auto-related uses, light manufacturing, warehousing distribution facilities, pharmaceutical facilities, offices. There's even a power plant. Caithness is not far and is within this district. Among these various industrial uses are multiple existing automobile auction and auto storage facilities, such that these facilities are an established element of the character of the surrounding neighborhood. And the pattern of land use in this district is there's several existing industrial uses, existing auto storage uses are readily identifiable on the aerial photograph included as figure 8 of the DEIS, and I believe staff has also shown an aerial photograph in your board packet for this evening. It's readily clear from a review of that what the pattern of development is in the vicinity of our subject property. And given that pattern, the established character of the neighborhood, it's respectfully submitted that from a land use planning perspective, the proposed auto storage use is appropriate for the subject property. And in part because of the peculiar shape of the subject property, and in part because of the specific design of the proposed facility, it's further respectfully submitted that the proposed facility would not adversely affect the land use pattern or the neighborhood character, and in fact would be barely discernible from surrounding uses. The key elements of the proposed action is the retention of substantial areas of natural vegetation in the form of perimeter buffers that meet and exceed the respective land development standards for this site. Mr. Budakavali will explain that a little further when he describes the site plan. But specifically at the west along Bellport, at the avenue frontage of the site, there's no driveway access proposed, and a 100-foot natural buffer is proposed to be retained. As you know, the site is currently wooded, so that 100-foot buffer will retain the natural vegetation and will virtually eliminate the potential for the proposed facility to impact the visual character of the surrounding areas there. To the north is the Long Island Railroad corridor, followed by a relatively narrow A Residence 1 zoning district. It's approximately a quarter mile in width. That district is surrounded on 3 sides by that same L1 industrial district that our site is in, and on the 4th side, which is the north side, by the Long Island Expressway corridor. To further minimize the potential for adverse effects on that district specifically, this proposed site plan increases the natural buffer at the north to a minimum of 150 feet, also virtually eliminating the potential for adverse effects on that portion of the surrounding neighborhood. To the south of the subject property are additional industrially zoned properties, including a large undeveloped wooded parcel, the Suffolk County Water Authority water storage tank and wells that we've talked about, and a private learning center, new interdisciplinary school, which will also be well buffered in accordance with the town's development standards. At the east along Sills Road, the proposed action includes only a site access driveway and the existing, it was the former Fishers of Men church building, which is to remain, and that's what's visible from there. The proposed auto storage areas would be substantially set back from the roadway, where the subject property is situated opposite a large existing auto storage and auction facility and various other neighboring industrial uses. Thus, once again, from a planning perspective, the proposed action and the proposed special permit use has been appropriately located and designed and would not be expected to result in any significant adverse land use or zoning related impacts. With regard to alternatives, I just want to take a moment to also discuss those as it relates to the environmental review process. The secret regulations require that EISs, such as the ones prepared for this project, analyze alternatives to their proposed action. And the Seeker Handbook, which is published by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, emphasizes the importance of evaluating alternatives as part of the environmental review process, and specifically discusses the comparison of the proposed action to as-of-right uses or developments within an EIS for types of actions. Section 4.2 of the DEIS is devoted to that. We analyzed within that document a range of as-of-right alternatives to facilitate a comparison of impacts. In other words, if not for this proposed action, what would be likely to be developed at this site, or what could be developed at this site on an as-of-right basis without the need for a special permit as is sought here. And as you're probably very familiar, the L Industrial 1 zoning district of the town provides for or permits a wide range of land uses on an as-of-right basis, meaning not requiring a special exception approval. Those include, but are not limited to, agricultural and nursery uses, commercial laundries, lumber yards, manufacturing, motor vehicle rentals, office uses, printing plants, stone and mason suppliers, warehouses, and a range of others. And each of the impact topics I listed that were evaluated in the DEIS for the proposed action were then also evaluated for a range of these as-of-right alternative uses. Those analyses concluded that the as-of-right development of the subject property without the need for special exception could result in more extensive and intensive development of the subject property, depending on the specific use. And that, for example, based on a minimum floor area ratio of maximum floor area ratio of 0.3 allowed in the L Industrial 1 zoning district, the subject property would support nearly 500,000 square feet of floor area of an industrial use. It's a larger parcel, and it's just I just mean that as a simple, mathematical equation. That such development would generally come along with large quantities of potable water use and the discharge of sanitary waste to groundwater, traffic generation, and probably, especially notable, large areas of paved surface parking, such as would be needed to support a large use like that. An office building, a general industrial use, or even fitness centers are permitted, or some combination of those uses at the site would be expected to include large surface parking areas. To quantify some of those comparisons, the as-of-right development alternative would generate up to 10,600 gallons per day of sanitary waste for discharge to groundwater at the subject property, whereas the proposed action will not discharge any sanitary waste. Similar analogy for domestic water use. The proposed action would retain over 10 acres of existing natural vegetation at the site, where the as-of-right development could theoretically clear the entire site and establish several acres of fertilizer-dependent lawns and landscaped areas and that sort of thing. With regard to traffic impacts, which Pat Linehan will address further, trip generation estimates, depending on the specific as-of-right use, indicate that approximately 200 to 300 or more trips could be generated in peak traffic hours entering and exiting the subject property, whereas the proposed action is expected to generate only 37 trips in the AM and PM peak hours. With regard to public health and safety, many uses permitted in the L Industrial District would have a greater potential to involve the storage and handling of hazardous materials on the subject property than the proposed action, such as manufacturing uses or printing plants or commercial laundries or others. And again, overall, the DEIS analysis concluded that the proposed action would actually be relatively benign compared to many of the allowable as-of-right uses under the prevailing industrial one zoning, and would have a lesser potential to result in a significant adverse environmental impact with respect to those topics. You asked a little bit about fire safety, so I'd just like to briefly address that. And as that was also a focus of the planning board's second positive declaration, which prompted the preparation of the draft supplemental EIS. Just a few key points. First, the proposed action incorporates various measures relevant to fire protection, including the dedication of a portion of the site for the storage of electric and hybrid vehicles with appropriate signage and labeling, and located within 500 feet of a hydrant. I think part of the type of concern that you, Mr. Chairman, have raised with regard to fire protection, firefighting, arises when you talk about the storage of electric vehicles, and that was part of the dialogue with the town as we were preparing this document. That was also specifically addressed by the Yaphank Fire Department during our consultations with them. We shared them our plans. They issued a letter indicating that they will serve the site, and that in fact, in accordance with the industry standard protocols, they would use water to fight fires for electric vehicle fires, and that large amounts of water is the most desirable way to treat those kinds of fires. The proposed facility would not create some kind of a unique service demand on the fire department, given that there are several automobile storage facilities in the area, just as they would serve other large parking lots, etc. And I think one of the other things you mentioned, the use of those certain types of firefighting foams. They've been making headlines in the last year or more in the area, generally having to do with fires involving jet fuel. Like you hear in West Hampton, they're fighting issues where firefighting foam that is specifically used for jet fuel was applied over and over again routinely as part of a firefighting training and practice, and not necessarily fighting an individual fire or incident or even a series of incidents. So those kinds of concerns are not necessarily appropriately focused on this project. However, the point that we have to be considerate of firefighting here is well taken. And I think Dr. Woodard talked about that if that sort of a foam were to be applied here, this is the type of system you would use to treat that water. And here that system would be in place, collecting and then treating the water prior to it reaching the ground. The proposed action also incorporates the use of a thermal imaging camera system capable of early and reliable fire incident detection that would sense and then notify the operator and emergency responders in the event of a fire at the site. These sorts of things, the earlier it's detected and notice goes out, the better. There are monitoring and shutoff features associated with the proposed stormwater treatment system. There is an emergency action plan that will be maintained and implemented at the site, detailing the operator's response in the event of fire emergency and a range of other potential emergencies in the event such a thing would happen. Additionally, a key lockbox would be maintained at the access gate to allow easy access by the Yaphank Fire Department at any time. Again, the proposed action would not present a unique service demand on the fire district or department, given the various existing auto storage and auction and outdoor storage facilities throughout this portion of the town. The site plan has been reviewed by the town's Department of Building and Fire Prevention and received an approved as submitted determination from Senior Fire Marshal Williams as of November of 2018, I believe. That was an early consultation at that time. And the proposed action has been reviewed by the Yaphank Fire Department, as I mentioned, by letter dated April 4th, 2020. The Yaphank Fire Department's Chief's Office confirmed it will provide services to the proposed facility. That letter is included as an appendix to the draft supplemental impact statement. And overall, the proposed facility incorporates measures to address fire safety, including all the measures and design features that were requested by the town's fire marshal, the Yaphank Fire Department, and therefore the EIS indicates that no significant adverse impacts associated with fire protection are anticipated. So thank you for the opportunity to address those environmental review topics. Just very briefly, if I could, I was asked to also touch upon maintenance of the facility, because that's also described and detailed within the DSEIS. The applicant is committed to performing all the necessary maintenance and continuous monitoring of that system to ensure its proper operation. The proposed system includes leak detection, emergency shutoff facilities, monitoring and security camera systems, the use of portable standby emergency generators in the event of power failure. These monitoring systems would continue to operate, and the systems themselves. There would be routine maintenance performed at the site, and the site would be routinely monitored in person by an operator who's responsible for inspection and cleaning and sampling and maintaining records. And that operator would be on call 24 hours a day, 7 days per week. Annual maintenance would also be performed in accordance with the manufacturer's specifications, which ECT2 and or James Neary can probably speak more specifically to.
Thank you.
But thank you for...
What is the effectiveness of this treatment plant in sub-zero weather? Has that been considered?
I suppose Mr. Woodard, Dr. Woodard would be best able to answer that. Dr. Woodard?
Yes, that's a good question, and the system has been designed to work in the Northeast, and we have a lot of systems in the Northeast that have similar design and will accommodate low temperatures without freezing.
Thank you. Counselor, you want to move on to your next colleague? Mr. Archer?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Dave Buttacavoli of VHP. VHP prepared the site plan that has been displayed in front of us. And now that we have a lot of the background from our experts, I'd ask that Dave describe the site plan. But I want to emphasize that the site plan changed. It changed from its initial submission date to the time that we submitted the supplemental DEIS. And I'm going to ask Dave Buttacavoli to describe that for you, because what changed was to facilitate the system that Dr. Woodard described for you. And Dave Buttacavoli will describe the location and the changes that were made, but also some general site information that perhaps we haven't already covered. Dave?
Okay, so Dave?
Dave, we can't hear you.
Mr. Buttacavoli, please describe the plan.
No, we see you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Back?
Okay, good.
All right. I'll start again. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the planning board. My name is Dave Budakavale, and I'm a principal at VHB Engineering located at 100 Motor Parkway, Hopewell, New York. As many of my colleagues, I think, just went through a number of the site features and site issues that have been addressed in both the documents as well as some prior plans. I'm not going to rehash some things that they already chatted about, but I do want to chat a little bit about the access as well as the buffers, and then I'll get a little bit into the stormwater system and what Keith was alluding to when he talked about the changes. So the property itself will be accessed from a right-in, right-out access from Sills Road. And that will be the only access. I know it was spoke of before, but I think it's worth mentioning again due to the fact that prior applications did have access from Bellport Station Road, which we do not have at all. There is, in addition to the access coming in off Sills, there is another curb cut that does exist on Sills Road that currently is used for the Fishers of Men Church. That will be closed, and the access then will go in through this right-in, right-out only access, and they'll be able to turn in. I point that out because there won't be two access points on Sills Road for this entire facility. It will just be one. This way it doesn't become a confusing entrance. We talked a little bit about the buffers and the distances, but I wanted to add that the buffers themselves will have 8-foot fencing all around it. And there'll also be the privacy slats along Bellport Station Road and Sills, which will actually even increase the amount of limited visibility that can be seen, which is also in areas that are being landscaped along Sills, and on Bellport Station Road, it's all going to remain green. So on the plan, you know, all the white area that you see around there is all natural green to be remained. So there's 100 feet on Bellport Station and 150 feet north on the MTA property. I think that there's something to be said about how much it will not be seen by most everybody out there in the public. The parking area. So we heard a little bit about, well, we heard a lot about the water treatment facility, how the water is going to be treated, what we're dealing with, and how they're going to make that happen. I'm going to chat a little bit about how it actually gets there. So the parking surface area for the facility is asphalt. There were many discussions that we had with planning to perhaps make it RCA or some sort of a permeable concrete. And the final decision was that we would not be able to adequately manage the stormwater once it went into any kind of a system so that we could actually treat it. So the decision that was arrived to is that the asphalt areas, Beth, if you can go to the next one, which is the drainage plan, I think. Should be in the set. Yeah. So the plan you see there shows a number of different areas, and essentially the water is being collected in catch basins. So again, step back, it's asphalt. All the asphalt is warped, as all asphalt is, to be able to get the water to move to a location. And then each one of these areas collect the water in catch basins, which are a closed unit. Water doesn't go anywhere, it goes into the unit, and then it actually goes through a pipe network. Those networks then go into oil water separators, which I believe both Steve and James chatted about regarding they have that things will be settled out. Once the water passes that, then it goes up into the basin. That's the product of what Keith mentioned to change. Although it looks like a recharge basin, it's actually a lined basin. So nothing is recharging out of it. What's happening is that the water is flowing into that, and then the water is coming and being pumped up from the western side of that basin. And then water is going up into the treatment center. It's being treated. Then it discharges out into these leaching galleys. The leaching galleys are similar to dry wells or any other leaching galleys, but what we're actually leaching out is going to be almost clear reverse osmosis water for all intents and purposes, to go back to what they talked about. So the system itself and how it works, and one question, Chairman, is if there's over spray on certain areas. You know, for the areas that are within this, anything that flows from here flows into these catch basins and gets to the same network, out to the same system, and then goes to the treatment facility. So the system itself is designed to be totally contained. It's a closed system. The only part of it that does become open will be once it gets to the leaching chambers after the water treatment facility. So with that, I know there's going to be questions regarding the water, but I do want to just introduce Pat Lenahan so we can chat a little bit about the traffic. I think that's it.
Isn't asphalt more vulnerable to this type of contaminant or agents that are vehicular?
So the asphalt itself, I mean, there's other additives that we can put into it. But I mean, itself, I would have to look and get back to you if there's something specific that's out there that would make it even more vulnerable. I mean, other than that, we could take some areas directly around the catch bases and make them concrete. I wouldn't suggest a whole lot that way, but there are certain points that we could do that. I'd have to see if there's anything further regarding the asphalt. Pat, you're up.
Thank you, Dave.
Oh.
Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Good afternoon. I guess we're still afternoon. Chairman Pascal, members of the planning board and staff. My name is Patrick Lenahan. I am the director of the Transportation Division at VHB's Long Island office in Hop Hog. As part of the draft supplemental environmental impact statement prepared for the project, VHB performed a detailed traffic impact study to evaluate potential impacts to transportation associated with the proposal. The TIS is included as an appendix to the supplemental EIS and was performed in accordance with the final scope of the DEIS and in keeping with standard traffic engineering practices and procedures. I should also mention that prior to initiating the study, we also had discussions with Suffolk County Department of Public Works to make sure we were responsive to their concerns in response to the access and evaluated everything they needed evaluated. The TIS evaluated elements such as existing and no-build traffic conditions, traffic safety, site access, future volumes, and capacity. The traffic study was accepted as part of the overall document for circulation and public comment and included review by town staff and the town's traffic consultant. As per the final scope, the study evaluated a total of 23 intersections. We did submit a graphic on an aerial background that had a series of red and blue intersection dots. If that's available, that would be great. If not, I would describe the scope of the study as the length of Sills Road from Bellport Station to the LIE, County Road 16 horse block from Bellport Station down to Sunrise Highway, station from Sills down to Sunrise Highway, and a couple of intersections on Bellport Avenue, that's Long Island Avenue, and the south service route of the expressway. Those were included in the scope as they were, there was concern expressed by the neighborhood on Bellport Road, but I did want to mention that there is no access, as Dave said, on Bellport Avenue. In addition, there is a truck restriction on Bellport Avenue north of Horseblock Road. So there will be virtually none of our traffic and absolutely none of our truck traffic that would even consider using Bellport Avenue. So based on the specifics of the operation of the site provided by the developer, it's been found that the operation as proposed will not cause significant negative impacts to traffic conditions on these roadways or at these intersections. Traffic levels at the site will be modest even during the peak periods as well as over the course of the day. To talk about scale, in taking some high side assumptions, we land at about one trip every 3 minutes into the site and one trip every 3 minutes out of the site. Given the nature of the roadways and intersections, that is certainly not anything to cause an impact of note. However, we did go through the rigorous exercise of looking at the capacity analysis at a number of the study intersections. As Dave mentioned, the site access point has been designed to provide right turns into and out of the site only, with geometry more than adequate to accommodate the vehicles we anticipate at the site. And the Suffolk County Department of Public Works has reviewed our proposed design. In conclusion, based on my evaluation, it is my professional opinion that the development of the proposed project will not result in a significant negative impact on traffic conditions in the area. And unless there are any immediate questions right now, certainly I will be here for the duration to answer any questions. I would like to pass our presentation on to Mike Lynch, our real estate expert, who will talk about real estate in the site area.
One quick question, maybe you or Mr. Buttakalvi can answer. As far as, are there any alternate access points for emergency services?
We don't, on the property the way it is now, we don't have any other emergency access other than there's a loop within the property out, but there's not a secondary means. No, we could add a secondary means, especially coming out into the front, but on the plan right now, we don't have a
So
secondary.
if there was an emergency on the northernmost portion of that property, you'd still have to go through Sills Road ingress?
Correct. We have to, right, that's the only access. You'd have to go through Silver Grove access, yes.
Okay, you can go on to the next speaker.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Michael Lynch. I'm here as a state certified real estate appraiser on this matter. And as Mr. Archer indicated earlier, I have testified before this board in the past, as well as the other boards in the town of Brookhaven. I try not to rehash much of the info that Mr. Wortman and the other experts covered. I'm here to talk about the compatibility of use of the project, as well as any potential impact to nearby and surrounding property values. So as we know, this property is at the southeast corner of the LIRR right-of-way and Bellport Avenue in the hamlet of Yaphank, running through to the westerly side of Sills Road. The project entails a motor vehicle storage facility that will encompass 20.82 acres out of a 35.7 acre site. It's zone LI, as the board is aware, as well as the entire south properties to the south, to the east, and to the west are LI zoned, and many of which are utilized as such. Along the northerly side of the property is the LIRR right-of-way. That also to its north has a series of 9 residences that are within the hamlet of Medford. The rear of those residences back up to the LIRR right-of-way. The level of protection here that's being offered in this project which has been reinforced, are the buffers, not only along the south side of the LIR, which will protect those residences to the north on Long Island Avenue by means of a 150-foot natural buffer that will remain. There will also be a 100-foot buffer along the easterly side of Bellport Avenue. So the visibility as far as those residences to the north of the LIRR, as well as those properties along the westerly side of Bellport Avenue, will not view this operation. As indicated, there will be a single driveway in from Sills Road. There will be additional buffering along Sills Road of a 100-foot vegetated buffer. The other measures that are important with respect to the special criteria and as it relates to property values in the area is the water treatment plant that has been covered extensively during this hearing. Again, that's that in addition to the buffers that are planned are of utmost importance to conserving the property values of the nearby properties, specifically the nearby residences to the north on Long Island Avenue. Given the makeup of the area and the immediate surrounding streets, including along Bellport Avenue and Sills Road, I don't feel that this project, should it be approved, will result in any undesirable changes to not only the pattern of development, but to nearby property values. Again, the groundwater, which is of utmost importance in this operation, will be safeguarded and the buffers that are planned, specifically the 150-foot buffer along the south side of the Long Island Railroad, which will remain in its natural state. And the railroad itself also maintains a small wooded buffer along its north side. So between the 150-foot natural buffer that's going to be provided in this operation, in addition to the railroad and the buffer that's immediately along the north side of the railroad, I don't feel that those residences to the north will be impacted any whatsoever by this operation. Again, it's a low impact traffic operation. As Mr. Wortman pointed out, there are other uses that are far more onerous as of right. So again, given the safeguards that are going to be carried out in this project, which again, not to overemphasize, but the natural buffering and the water treatment site to protect the groundwater in the area, I don't feel, again, that should this project be approved, that there'll be any threat to nearby property values, specifically those residentially zoned residences to the north on Long Island Avenue. I have prepared a report that's going to be submitted, and I did cover all the pertinent special use criteria in that report. And at this point, I can answer any questions if the board may have any. No?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, if there are no questions, then I'd just like to sum up if I could. I know we've taken up a lot of your time. But in summing up this hearing, I believe the presentation today clearly demonstrates the commitment made by the applicant to ensure that the operation of this facility will have no impacts on the surrounding environment, and in particular on the nearby Suffolk County Water Authority well field. The applicant has taken great care in designing the proposed facility to avoid any impacts to the residential areas to the north, as mentioned by Mr. Lynch, and by having all vehicles enter and exit the site from Sills Road, as well as the extensive natural landscape buffer surrounding the property, which will insulate and buffer the property from surrounding uses. The stormwater treatment system proposed by the applicant will be more protective of groundwater than any other similar uses in the vicinity of the site. The applicant has also demonstrated compliance, and Mr. Lynch's report will further document that, with the special permit requirements for this project and consistency of the development with the area, as well as the minor relief requested from the town's land development standards. So this concludes our presentation, and we look forward to concluding the SEQRA site plan approval special permit process. I would have a request, and that is to the extent that, I know we took up a lot of your time, but to the extent that there were comments made tonight, I know we probably be responding them in the FEIS, but to the extent that they are relevant, significant to our presentation, we'd like the ability for one or both of them of our experts to respond.
All right, thank you, Councilor. Councilor Ray, before I ask the board for questions, I'd like to ask the public. How many speakers?
If I have some public speakers, but also if there are, is there anyone else, if they're in the queue and they're in my list and they haven't told me already that they want to speak, at this point, just if you can do the raise your hand function or go into the Q&A or the chat and let me know that you're here to speak from the public.
All right, when you bring a speaker in from the public, when they conclude, we'll give them 30 minutes. When they conclude their talking points, then you can move on to the next one. You can.
Mr. Chairman, I had some questions, but you said you're going to take questions at the end of the public comments.
Yeah, the board will take questions.
Okay, so start bringing the public in then. I'm going to bring them in one at a time.
Yeah, one at a time, and when they conclude their talking points, then you can, bring the next one in and exit that particular speaker.
Just brought someone in, but I don't see them on the screen. And Jean, are you in the meeting now?
I see a number of attendees. I don't know what they're related
Yeah,
to.
I've let Jean into the meeting. She had Jean Forster.
Is your mute on?
No, it doesn't appear to be. Hold on just a moment. All right. I'm going to take Jean Forster out for the moment. She's from the Civic Association. She had some expert testimony that she wanted to bring in. So give me a moment and I'm going to let someone else in for the moment.
I didn't do that, did you? Okay. I'm not surprised.
All right, Kathy. All right, I have someone named Kathy that I've brought in at her request. Don't see them either. Ms. Forster, I have you in the public meeting. You're sending me a message. I have you in the meeting, but you are not. We have you off mute and don't see you there. I'm going to try this. There's someone named Rachel May that I'm allowing into the meeting.
I think Mr. Archer wore everybody out.
All right, Ms. May, I have.
He does that from time to time.
Chairman, I'm not sure what to say at the moment because
The participants that you're calling, are they actually signed on for application
Yes.
number 8 that they're not
Yes.
responding?
right. Let me see what I can do.
Well, why don't you try and bring some of these applicants in the meantime? I'll go back to the board, see if they have any questions rather than hold it up. If you can bring one in, then we'll just interrupt the board.
Lee, Rachel looked like she was muted.
Yeah, but she has to unmute herself. So I can't, initially
Yeah,
she has to unmute herself and I am not getting them to do that. So I have one other person. Let me see if I can get Nancy Lupfler. Oh, there's Kathy.
Hello.
Hello. Kathy, what's your last name?
Hi, my name is Kathy Coleman.
Okay, Ms. Coleman, can you raise your right hand?
Yes, sir.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes, I do.
Okay, Ms. Coleman.
Yes, I live on Bellport Avenue, 134, and I've been listening to the presentation. It seems like a lot of impressive credentials just to store cars, a storage car lot. We have Gersher, the recycling cars nearby. We have the Brookhaven landfill, the smell of the dumps. I had to respond to the area because the traffic with the speeding, excessive speeds, and there is no really enforcement. There is a sign up for the no through trucks, but it's not enforced. The town trucks speed through every single day. Big commercial trucks, they're down this block every single day. So I feel to say that there's not going to be any traffic impact or noise, or it's just really nonsense. There hasn't been any enforcement of this law since I've been here 30 years. There hasn't been any traffic stops of trucks coming by here. So, I'd like to really address that. On Bellport Avenue, the road is very thin, it's narrow. The town trucks, they knock down your mailboxes when it's snowing. That you have a lot of cut-through traffic that goes through Coram. I'm just very disappointed that the town would, even consider putting a storage car place in this area. It's just really, do you really need this in our area? Would you want it in your neighborhoods? You can't even go out and check your mail without worrying about getting hit by a car on the block. So it's kind of nonsense to me that the traffic is not going to be affected by it, because none of the traffic has been enforced on this block for 30 years. If they're just going to store cars, you have, like I said, all the recycling plants, you have the landfill. There's plenty of junk things in our neighborhood. I don't think it's fair that we add another junk place in our community. A lot of houses on Bellport Avenue are renovating, they're fixing up homes. And, it should clean up all the way going south of the railroad tracks. And that's a mess over there. They already put in, it looks like, a water system already. I don't know if it's that for this proposed project or not, but a lot of people can't even see the sign because there's been construction there for the last month. So, I think that that's not really fair either. And the block in the area is just really not suited for any more traffic. And I really oppose this. I don't think anyone would want that in your neighborhood. I don't know where you board members live, but would you want that in your yard? I don't understand why there can't be other properties used that are more desolate, affecting not any residential taxpayers. I don't think it's appropriate for the area, and I would hope you would consider that. I know you had a lot of experts. I'm not really impressed with it because they're not going to live there. They're just going to dump cars there. So I appreciate your consideration. If you could do the right thing and at least have an impact on our neighborhood when we're trying to improve our neighborhood instead of destroying it with more junk.
Thank you, Mrs. Coleman.
All right, I appreciate if you would really consider the impact of people going through the area, the road. There's no.
This is a public hearing. We're taking, information from both sides. So I appreciate your input. Lee, you want to see if there's another individual?
Yes, I have. Okay.
If you
I'm
can
gonna take-
exit, Ms. Coleman.
Excuse me?
No, the administrator has to take you out and put some, thank you.
Okay, yes, I have, let's see, Rachel May is coming in. All right, Ms. May?
Hi, my name's Matthew May. I live at 794 Long Island Avenue, which is about a quarter mile west of this site.
Mr. May, can you raise your right hand, please? You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead. You can speak.
My primary concerns are somewhat in line with what the previous commenter just said. Years ago, there was another auto storage facility put directly behind our house where I didn't realize, these public forums went on. And I know you say there's going to be a natural buffer, but I have a 2-story residence. In the wintertime, when the vegetation falls off the trees, no matter what that buffer is, directly into that auto storage light from upstairs. Not to mention they keep their lights shining bright on all night to illuminate the car. They shine right through our window. There's no fencing or anything like that, so I don't know how that's proposed in this new one. We have severe issues with traffic on Long Island Avenue already. I have a 3-year-old son and a 9-month-old that can't go out and play in the front yard because there is trucks and you can see other vehicles for the other auto storage yards coming down the block at high rates of speed. So it's very concerning that they can't even be children and go out in the front yard and play. There's been nothing addressed to stop the flow of traffic through the residential neighborhood, on any level. I made complaints to Suffolk County Police, which did nothing. The cars travel down this road at 60 or 70 miles an hour, which is horrible. And property values are going to be negatively impacted by this, no matter what you guys say. I just invested $350,000 in my house to rebuild it and renovate it. And this is just, something that is, no matter what you do, is not going to help diminish the value of our properties in this neighborhood. So I guess that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you, Mr. May. Regarding your concern about the lighting spilling into your bedroom windows, you might want to contact the town because the town has a code for dark sky compliance. And if they're spilling light into your property, you should notify the town. They can check that out for you, okay?
Sure, thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Raitt, you have another speaker?
Well, I have the ones from before. I'm going to try to bring in Ms. Forster again. All right, Mr. Chairman, I'm trying to bring in Ms. Forster. She's from the Civic Association. She's had paperwork she wanted to submit. I reached out to her. Our IT department reached out to her also.
Can you actually see her, or you just see her name listed in the participant?
She's in here. She had messaged me earlier, but for whatever reason, it's not coming through. I'm going to try the other woman that I tried to get in before also, Ms. Lupfer. But the public is reminded that they can also submit written comments. So if they don't speak on the record today, they can submit their written comments. All right, Ms. Lupfer.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ms. Lupfer. Can you please raise your right hand? You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay. Go ahead, you can.
I've listened to your presentation, and just as the prior speakers, my neighbor, Mr. May, and the other woman, Ms. Coleman, stated, traffic in our area has been adversely impacted by the other storage facilities that have been built over the past years here. And I heard what they said as far as access being only allowed on Sills Road. But I have questions regarding that too, especially since they did consult with the Yaphank Fire Department. In the event of a major emergency with one entrance in and out, how might many emergency vehicles, number one, get into that facility since it's such a large parcel? Number two, I didn't hear, I may have missed it. Is there any security planned for this facility? Because the one that Mr. May spoke about, which is directly behind us, we're on Long Island Avenue, and there's a facility directly behind us on the south side of the railroad tracks. They have some sort of security that patrols there 24 hours a day, it appears. And as he stated, the lights are on 24 hours a day. Another major concern is, oh my goodness, my mind is on blank. Auctioneering. This was never proposed initially as a storage facility, but rather an auction house for the cars. So I wonder if now it's just being called something else and there will be auctioning going on. And many of the residents and neighbors were concerned about the sound quality and effects that it might have on the neighborhood. So I don't know if any of that stuff has been addressed and I just missed it.
Well, when you complete it, when we come back, the applicant's gonna have to answer those questions. I'm sure Mr. Archer is taking notes as you're speaking.
Okay, and here on Long Island Avenue, some years ago, because the rate of traffic and the speeds that come down our street are so high, I applied to the town and it was approved to have the speed limit reduced to 35 miles per hour. I really wanted no truck traffic access on this road, and all that they were able to facilitate was no truck traffic except local deliveries. My question is, do they consider deliveries to this storage/auction facility, do they consider cars being delivered there as local deliveries?
Very good question. That's a good question. We'll let Mr. Archer answer that.
You know, when I really requested that years ago, I asked that question and no one could really provide that answer for me, because I think, you know, right after Superstorm Sandy, I saw so many car carriers coming off the expressway, coming off Sunrise Highway, and cars were being placed in so many areas here in Brookhaven, Bellport, Medford. And I've always wondered for years now where those cars were sitting and what was the purpose. And it appears that now we're starting to see what's happening with all these cars. I mean, as you guys well know, Gershow has taken over acres and acres of property just south of the Long Island Railroad here in Medford. And those cars sit there like they're waiting to go into some kind of battle. And I'm just curious, as a resident, what is really truly happening here? If anyone could really be honest. I know you guys have to close and cap the dump. Is this something, are we becoming this used car capital of the world with auctions because it's going to provide some kind of income for the town of Brookhaven? I wish someone would just be honest with us, because as Mr. May said and Ms. Coleman said, we are residents here. Yes, we know this area is zoned a certain way, but there are so many people trying to improve their homes, we being one of them. And I wonder if there's a real estate who's developing right across the street from us some undeveloped property and going to be building 4 brand new homes. Does that real estate developer know what's about to come about, and with new homes with children in the area? And all the professionals can say all they want about how they are going extra means beyond anyone's recommendations, and Cuomo's going to sign in October. But you know, we're the folks sitting right here who are going to be greatly impacted by this. And the railroad, are they going to have access off the railroad to drop cars off here? Because at one time, one of these developers said, you know, in other words, when we attended a meeting, that we should really try to be careful what we're wishing for or standing against, because they might just provide, the railroad might provide a little bit of access to drop some of these cars off. And it's just not
All right.
fair.
Well, let's let Mr. Archer address some of those concerns.
Okay. Thank
All
you
right?
very much.
Thank you, Ms.
very
Leffa.
much. Okay.
Council, we have any other public speakers? You are mute.
Jean Forster, she's in and she's unmuted. I'm just not sure if she's able to.
Can you send her a note or?
Yes, I did, and so did our information technology representatives.
All right, well, I'm going to move on to the board questions if they have any, but just let Ms. Forster, what was it, Ms. Forrester, know that she can send her comments, written testimony or comments to the planning board, and we'll make them part of the public record.
Okay.
All right. Moving on to board questions. Do you have any questions by the board?
I have a number, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Is Mr. Archer there ready to answer these, or you just want to
He's
lay
on
him?
the screen. He's on screen.
Okay.
Either us or our consultants, Mr. Smith.
Okay, thank you. The large yard that's to the west of you, I guess that another auto salvage yard, is that another auction place or just a place where they're keeping demolished cars?
So I think I know the facility you're speaking about. It's unrelated. And as I understand it, there's an application pending for that facility in the planning department.
All right, can I just jump in for a second? May I, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Okay. Because that was actually one of the things I wanted to address on our list. The site that is to the west is operating illegally. They sought a change of zone for their operation, and the board elected not to consider that application. So that is not in the pipeline, and it's not moving forward at the town of Brookhaven. I want to make that clear. There was enforcement action on that site, which is what brought them to the town. So that's the site to the west.
Thank you.
Lee knows more than I do.
Well, it's something that just came up recently, and I had the question, and I had to have Beth remind me of what we were talking about.
Thank you, Lee.
My second question is, it looks like according to the calculations, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, you have space for 2,416 vehicles?
You know, when you do these EISs, you always look at what the max is. I'm not saying that there are going to be that number of cars, Mr. Smith, but the requirement is that you look at the worst case scenario. But I don't believe, nobody believes that from time to time there'll be anywhere near that close to the number of cars. But again, it's in the EIS as the max, because that's what the EIS requires.
Yeah.
But there's no expectation that there'll be that number of cars.
I just counted the amount that was shown on that particular drawing. I think part of my question was answered. Somebody answered how the fluids are collected. Apparently the entire lot is going to be paved with asphalt, and then it's going to be pitched towards drains that are into a closed system that's going to go to sort of a catch basin, a sealed catch basin, and then into a treatment plant. But someone else pointed out the fact that, yes, asphalt can be somewhat porous to certain materials. I just wanted to make note of that. The condition of the vehicles that are coming here, some of them, what do you think the percentage of the cars coming here are going to be damaged? Or are they just going to be regular insurance claims or what? From what I've seen in most of these sites, a lot of these cars sometimes are severely damaged.
I'm going to give you the information that I know. I think it's going to be a mix, Mr. Smith. I can't quantify the percentage of cars that perhaps would have been in some sort of accident versus those that were repossessed, or for some reason the dealer was assigned to the insurance company to auction it off. Unfortunately, I don't have that kind of breakdown.
So that's sort of what you have. You have cars that have been possibly repossessed. You have some that may have been damaged and some that are just being sold off, or that sort of thing.
I think that's right. I think it's a mix. I think it's a mix, and I can't quantify, what percentage is allocated to each.
I give this question to you and possibly other folks in the town who might know the answer to this. The three lots that are to the south of the lot that you're looking to develop right now, do we know who owns those lots? Does your client own those lots, or if those lots are under any type of a site plan or any thoughts at this present time?
I'll be happy to answer that, but Lee may know more information than I do. To my knowledge, those three lots, first of all, they're not part of this application. And to my knowledge, there is no application pending on that property. We actually happen to know who the owners are, only because one of my law partners happens to happens to know them. And I will tell you, there is no relationship between the applicant and the owner of those 3 parcels.
Okay, so your applicant does not own those parcels. There are other people, and from the best knowledge right now, there are no pending site plans or thoughts on those particular parcels.
Not to my knowledge. Lee or Beth may know better, but to my knowledge, absolutely not.
Okay, thank you. That's the extent of my questions.
Mr. Archer, there was a couple questions by the public, specifically Ms. Leffer, where she concerns about security. You plan on having manned security at the site?
Sure. So first of all, if you're going to have an 8-foot high fence that surrounds the property, there were going to be thermal imaging cameras going 24 hours a day. Obviously, the gates are going to be locked except when it needs to be accessed off of Sills Road. But there'll be cameras going 24 hours a day.
But no physical security guarding the site, no trucks driving around security?
I don't believe so, Mr. Chairman, only because the cameras are going to be monitored.
There was a question by Ms. Leffer, so I think you addressed it. Okay. The other thing is a truck restriction on that road except for local deliveries. I thought that was a kind of good question, because I guess you're going to be considered a local delivery.
It is a good question. I'm not gonna answer that. I'm gonna let Pat Lenihan answer that question.
Yeah, that's a loaded question.
No, it's a good question, and I'll tell you why.
That's why I'm following up with it. It was a good question.
Yeah, and I'm glad to have the opportunity. The access to the site, the circulation, the location of the site, and the truck restriction are all related. But specifically in regard to the truck restriction, the legislation that allows law enforcement to cite commercial drivers in any instances has an exception to it for local delivery, whether or not the sign says except for local delivery. And that's because obviously if you own a home on Bellport Avenue and let's say you're moving, you get a moving van, if there was no exception for local delivery, you'd be carrying your furniture down the street. So those always exist with that type of regulation. The exception is if there's a physical structure such as a bridge or a culvert, which is structurally incapable of carrying the weight of the truck. So when there's any sort, and that's not the case here, when there's any sort of, let's say a truck was pulled over by law enforcement northbound on Bellport Avenue, within the area of the truck restriction, because it doesn't exist south of Horse Block Road, only north. The questions that get asked are, where are you going? And if you're not stopping immediately in the Bellport Avenue vicinity or right in the vicinity on Long Island Avenue, if you're heading, for instance, to Riverhead or to Hop Hog, and you're making your way ultimately to the Long Island Expressway, is there a reasonable alternative available to you besides the road that you're on that has the truck restriction? And if you look if we look at the aerial photograph, we've got exit 55 and 65 and 66 on the LIE, which is Horse Block Road and Sills Road, respectively. In the case of this site, in my opinion, Bellport Avenue would not be a reasonable place for any of the trucks associated with our site to be, because if you are heading to the Long Island Expressway, you've got Horse Block Road. Now, Horse Block Road for many years did have a structural problem, and it was down posted so that trucks of significant weight couldn't take that route. As you're probably aware, the county is in the process now of wrapping up replacement of that bridge, so that restriction will be gone. So were any of the trucks from our site, either while arriving or departing, and we expect the great majority to come from the Long Island Expressway, to use Long Island Avenue or Bellport Avenue, they would be in clear violation of that ordinance and would be subject to being cited under the law. And I don't know exactly how many points it takes, but these folks could lose their commercial license, which is a very big thing for them. There is truck activity on Bellport Avenue normally because there are a number of land uses on Bellport Avenue that are industrial or industrial or heavy commercial in nature that are associated, that have trucks associated with them. They have to use the road. The town trucks presumably are doing maintenance activities. So that's my answer in regard to the truck restriction. In this case, it should be effective in eliminating any trucks from our site from using those roadways. But if we just look at the aerial photo and where the site lies, there are very good alternatives that they would probably use anyway. I mean, I would rather be on the expressway to 66 than get off at 65 and drive Long Island Avenue.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question when you get a chance.
Yes, go ahead. You want to ask a question?
May I speak?
Yes, please.
Okay, I just have a question. You stated before that a maximum of 2,416 cars total. I just want to put on the record and just ask for sure. These are just for cars. They're not for vehicles like box trucks or anything like that. These are all automobiles that you
My
propose.
understanding is that the vast majority, if not all, are cars. I can't tell you that there may not be an occasional, pickup truck. But if you're talking about 18-wheelers, I don't believe that that's the case. But you know what? This is a secret hearing. We'll get an answer to that.
I was just curious. All right, thank you.
Other questions by the board?
Mr. Chairman, this is John Rose. I have a quick question, and I'd like to ask, is there any kind of time restriction on a wreck or a repossessed vehicle that it stays on the lot until someone determines it's time to remove that vehicle? Because if a vehicle could stay permanently, it could cause like an overpopulation of cars on this lot.
I'm not aware, but the full expectation is that the vehicles are going to be on this property temporarily. Temporarily meaning 30 to 90 days until they're auctioned off. That's my understanding of how the process works.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Chairman,
Zarko?
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Oh, Mr. Ludis, yes, I can.
Ludis, how many vehicles do you anticipate will be coming into your facility daily, and how many will be leaving? In other words, what kind of activity do you anticipate?
I think that's a Pat Leningham question in terms of the number of trips and the like.
Sure. So the way we looked at it, there's a number of components. There's vehicles arriving at the site that may be there, several days or so. Then they're auctioned off at an online auction, and then those vehicles will be picked up. So you'll have a couple of staff members, and very infrequently someone who might drop by for an inspection. But based on discussions with the operator of the site, he anticipates that about 30 vehicles will arrive at the site daily on vehicle car carriers that have the capacity to hold an average of 3 vehicles. So that's roughly going to be equivalent to the number of vehicles that are going to leave the site on a daily basis. Otherwise, obviously, eventually the site would overflow, and we don't want that. So in our analysis, we used the number of arriving trucks, carrying vehicles, departing trucks, a couple of staff members, and just a couple of visitors to the site to look at the vehicles, because all of that is generally done almost exclusively on the internet these days. Thank you.
How many auctions do you anticipate will occur? How often will the auctions occur?
The auctions are not at the site. They're online auctions, not at the site at all.
And when people come to inspect the vehicles, although you said there's only a few, Will they be allowed to start the vehicles, drive them around, take them for a test drive?
I don't believe that's allowed at all.
They're not registered.
Yeah.
There's no ability to do that.
I don't say leave the site. Can they drive around on the site? They don't have to be registered for that.
No, they're not
I
registered.
don't believe so. My understanding is that it's a visual inspection of the vehicle.
Okay.
All right. The answer is no.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, this is Pete Zarcone. I have a question. I'm going to address it to Mr. Archer, and he's going to address it to who he thinks should handle it. But with the asphalt that you're looking to put down to have the car sit on, is there a chance that there will be, or you could put a membrane underneath the asphalt for the chance that anything that will seep through can be caught and maybe directed towards the drains that you had mentioned earlier?
I'm gonna send that one to Dave Butticavalli or to one of our water engineers.
Yeah, no, I'll take it. I mean, I think that that's an option that we can look into as far as putting something under there that would, in the event, capture anything that, perhaps didn't come out. It's a great idea. If it's something that's feasible that we could look into, we'd have to get back to you, but yes.
Okay, just the other question I have is, they talked about the local traffic and the deliveries. Is there a weight limit or a size limit on the vehicles that can come down that road?
That's a good question, Pat. I'm going to flip that over to you.
The Bellport Avenue restriction, I don't have the picture easily at my disposal. I have a picture of the sign. And I'm just going for memory, but there is a weight limit on that sign, and I think it's 2.5 tons, which is typical. When you look at County Road 16 and Sills Road and the reconstructed bridge that will now go over the railroad tracks on CO 16, there are no such weight limits. There's a lot of trucking activity in the area, and unless you have a special permit, just for point of information, our trucks will be nowhere near this weight. The legal weight of a vehicle in New York State is 80,000 pounds.
All right, and you're carrying roughly 8 vehicles, I believe you said, on the... They will arrive and depart on miniature, I call them miniature, but not the full-size tractor-trailer car carriers that you saw on the expressway after Hurricane Sandy, one after the other. But these are gonna carry 3 or 4 vehicles only. For our trip distillation, we assume 2, so we wind up probably with more of them than we'll actually have. So they're not full-size car carriers by any extent. There may occasionally be some, in talking to the operator, they may occasionally get a large carrier with just a few cars on it, but the norm is the smaller carriers. All right, and this is regards to fueling of the vehicles that come through. When they come into the grounds, do you empty out the vehicles to just a small amount of fuel to limit any potential problems as far as fires or spillage?
I would have to throw that back to one of our other team members. I'm not familiar.
Okay, so I would like the question answered when you get a chance.
Okay, Keith, do we
We'll
know?
get you an answer, Mr. Zarcone.
Thank you.
But I'd like to bring a commissioner in if you have any questions or concerns.
So I'd like to add on to Mr. Zarcone's question, not only about fuel, but all fluids, or all of the fluids drained from all of the vehicles before they get on site. So if you could get us that answer. Mr. Lenahan, I have a question for you about the trucks. Has there been a truck route plan submitted as a part of the site plan application?
I don't believe there is a truck route plan, but the truck routes are described in my traffic impact study. If the town would like to see a truck route plan, it's something we can certainly develop from that information.
Okay. And then I have a question for Mr. Wortman regarding his discussion about the zoning. You described it as being industrial, but what about all of that residentially zoned property to the north that immediately abuts this subject site? I mean, isn't this area also residential?
Right. So thank you. Yes, I think I did try to describe this thoroughly to acknowledge that there is A1 residential district to our north. And if I'm referring to the figure that's up on the screen now, if this were to zoom out just slightly so that we're not so concentrated on our site, I think what you would see is, as I described, the Industrial 1 district that we're a part of extends for long distances in all directions from here, except to the north. And there is what I described as an A1 residential zone that is north of the railroad tracks, south of the LIE, that is kind of surrounded on three sides by the L1 district that we're in. And as far as, you know, addressing that and the character of that area, what my testimony described was that we would be well buffered from those uses to the north. That's true with respect to views into the site. A 150-foot buffer would be provided of natural vegetation, and you can see even from this aerial, you know, it's a relatively mixed between deciduous and evergreen vegetation. So whatever's there is likely to provide a fairly substantial buffer. Mr. Lynch mentioned something that along the railroad corridor itself, there is also some vegetation present. So that has more to do with visual than anything. Because we're so buffered from the railroad to the north and those residences, and to Bellport Avenue to the west and those residences, and our only access is really going to be from Sills Road, where we're really kind of like smack into the industrial area, is why we describe that. We're really talking about a facility integrated to the industrial district here.
But you are the last parcel before the industrial starts. So you're not in the heart of it, you're at the edge of it.
Okay.
And then the other question I have is, are any of these other parcels within the 2-year capture zone for that well field?
The 2-year capture zone encompasses a pretty large area surrounding the well site itself. I don't know if you have the graphic that
I don't have it up, but for some reason I thought that it went
included
to the
in the EIS.
north and to the west, and it didn't include the Odessa site.
Okay, well, the graphic that was supplied by Suffolk County Water Authority, is included as Appendix J to the draft environmental impact statement, the 2019 document.
Okay.
It does include just a small portion of that Odessa site. You talk about the 0 to 2 year capture zone, which includes some areas further south that are improved with industrial and educational and other uses that have large parking areas. It does include part of that Odessa site, a small part. But there's also the next category, 0 to 2, is followed by then 2 to 5, which includes another chunk of that Odessa site and that automobile storage facility. And you can see from that map that as you sort of fan out, it includes more and more of the area within what they call the wells capture zone. And there's a limited amount of information provided on the map that Suffolk County Water Authority gives. So it's hard to determine exactly, is this referring to one of the 3 wells? Is this some kind of an aggregate in their model of all the 3 wells, et cetera? So if it's a question that the town would like answered, I think it's probably actually best answered by Suffolk County Water Authority or somebody else that has access to that, their modeling system that they used to develop these, which of course is based on its own assumptions, et cetera, but this is what's available.
And you also mentioned the fire prevention letter, and I think I had put it up from September of 19. Has the Division of Fire Prevention seen the amended site plan that we're now looking at?
The Division of Fire Prevention for the town of Brookhaven, I would ask Dave Budakavali or Keith Archer to talk about what was submitted as part of the site plan.
Because this letter
and what's
appears
been
to be
distributed
before you
to
guys
which
made the
department.
amendment.
I'd have to look and see, Keith, unless you know there was something more recent. I mean, I know we had dialogues back and forth. I would have to look at the date of a plan. I was under the impression they had the most recent, but unless you tell me differently.
Okay,
I think,
so it was referred to in the testimony, so if we could just get that clarified?
Yeah.
We'll get it clarified for you.
Okay, great.
The date of this letter predates the most recent design, so this was certainly associated with a somewhat older version of the site plan, but I will highlight that the changes that were made to the site plan in that interim period were really associated with the conversion of that recharge basin to a lined retention basin, and with the addition of the stormwater treatment system, which is like a small contained unit sort of adjacent to that. And most of the rest of the site plan remains as it was before. It was always proposing basically the same footprint and certainly the same nature of the land use and much the same design of the facility otherwise.
Okay. And the maintenance aspect of this system, because obviously this is something that's different than what was originally proposed in the DEIS. And the letter that I put up on the screen from Suffolk County Water Authority, one of their biggest concerns was that people don't comply with the required maintenance procedures. So the system needs maintenance, and Suffolk County Water in the past has said that people don't typically maintain the system. So how are we going to address that?
Yeah, I don't know if it says that people don't routinely maintain systems, or that this applicant won't do that, or
We
exactly
do not
how it
believe
phrases
that
it.
covenants and restrictions, no matter how stringent, would be sufficient to guarantee that this applicant or future owners of this business will adhere to required maintenance procedures.
Right. So where I was going with that is, as far as the concern being raised, will the facilities be maintained and can they be expected to work into the future? This letter was included in the draft supplemental EIS,
Right.
and the applicant's, collective response amongst the applicant's team is put forth in the draft supplemental EIS, which talks about the level of effort that the applicant is committed to putting in. It describes what are really kind of the, as sophisticated and sort of cutting edge as this system will be, the sort of basic elements of its maintenance, inspection and cleaning and annual maintenance from the manufacturer, and periodic testing, and once in a while the change out of some of the media. It's not as arduous as someone might expect, and the applicant is fully committed to complying with those. And again, this being a draft document that's out for public comment, we'd welcome further comments, input from the town, from the Suffolk Water Authority as to what's appropriate for controls. Certainly, as a special permit use, the use would only operate in a manner that's allowed to do so legally, and can only be expected to do that and not to operate in some other way. So that's what's evaluated. And again, I think the applicants, welcome to hear, further comment input from the town, from Suffolk Water, as to what's an appropriate level of control to hold them to their serious commitment to maintaining the facility in a good operating order.
Keith, do you want to add anything in there about the maintenance?
Yeah, no, can I, what David Waterman said is absolutely correct. And I think David, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the DSEIS, the draft supplement, it details that there is going to be physical oversight, but also there's going to be remote oversight of the system full time, and that there will be an operator at the site for a significant number of hours during each week. That it's an issue that we know from the Suffolk County Water Authority letter is a significant issue. We tried to respond to it in the DSEIS, but if you think further discussion is required, we welcome it.
Yeah,
we're not dodging anything. We want to make a commitment to maintain this system, and we're going to maintain it.
And then Mr. James Neary.
Yes.
You said that Suffolk County Water Authority uses this system.
Correct.
Do they use this system to capture contaminants like this before it gets into the groundwater?
No, I wished, they wish they did. Specifically, the comment I made had to do with the dioxin removal and the perfluorinated removal systems that ECT2 is deploying. And they are actively in use at their facilities as well as others.
So they're not using it to prevent things from getting into the water. This is something that they're using to get it out?
Correct. And that's why this is a more defensive approach.
So Suffolk County isn't using it this way, though?
They are using the same technology that is being proposed here for the treatment of the groundwater and the stormwater.
But they're not using it to prevent it from getting to the groundwater.
That's correct.
Is anybody on Long Island or within the Suffolk County Water Authority's jurisdiction using this system this way?
They are not, because nobody is actually being required to remove it in this fashion. And so this developer, and we've continued to make the statement that this is atypical application in the impoundment of the water to be very defensive. Most facilities, natural recharge is allowed, pavement drainage and runoff occur throughout, frankly, the US and the world, and unregulated contaminants are allowed to free flow into the groundwater system wherever they might be. So this is part of the reason I'm comfortable supporting this, is because the impoundment and treatment is unheard of in this respect.
Okay.
And I think if I could chime in also just with a simple concept related to that. Certainly the water doesn't know whether it's, been into the groundwater yet or not. And so for it to be treated before it's discharged to the ground or after it's discharged to the ground, if it's present in the water going in, then the system is designed to treat it. That's exactly what it's going to do. If Suffolk County Water Authority is either already operating a system or unrelated to this action has a reason to install such a system in the future, any of that treatment that it also does here would only be in addition to the treatment that water has already received, the water coming from our site.
I just wanted to be clear as to what they were using it for when we said that they're using it. And then Mr. Woodward talked about this being a proven technology. Where is this technology proven? Like, are there other examples that we could see?
Certainly, yes.
Or that's in the EIS?
Yes, some are in New York State, some are in California, some are in other parts of the country. I mean, these compounds, these emerging contaminants haven't been around that long, but they are being treated and they are being treated effectively with the technologies that are included in our proposed treatment system.
And are those places that are proven having the same types of soils and things like we have on Long Island? I mean, I know upstate is different when it comes to SWIP and things like that. And, we use recharge basins on Long Island. They don't use them upstate. So is it something that's proven here on Long Island, or would this be the first of its kind?
Yes.
Yes.
And I can second that.
Use these technologies.
Okay. And then you also talked about leak detection. What happens if this leaks? What happens if this system has a leak and these contaminants get into the water supply?
Well, it's pretty simple. If there's a leak, it's detected immediately and the system shuts down. So if the pump shuts down, you're not going to be, the water's going to stay in the retention basin that feeds the treatment system. So, and we'll be notified immediately through the remote monitoring system, and we'll come take care of the problem. Pretty standard for these types of systems.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question? This is Pete Zarcone in regards to the leak. At what level will you know of a leak?
It's not usually very low, less than an inch.
An inch based over what area?
The system is bermed, so it's do you know the exact area?
That's good, Dave.
Yeah, Dave, do you know the exact area? David?
Muted, Dave.
Yeah, on the square footage of the entire area?
Well, yeah, a leak.
Just around the treatment plant, yeah.
I mean, I'd just like to get an idea of at what length will that leak be happening before you have any idea that it's happened.
it's not a real big square footage for the treatment plant. So it would be, yeah, on the order of minutes.
I'd have to open up the AutoCAD file. I got to go into the actual
Right,
file.
so it's not hours, you're telling me minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chairman, I have a couple of questions.
I just had the one more question. I'm sorry, Ms. Reed. Mr. May asked about lights, if the site is going to be lighted, and that was my last question.
There were no lights proposed.
Okay, one other last question. Is there any proposed maintenance to be performed on any of these vehicles on site? Mr. Archer?
I don't believe any of the vehicles get repaired on site, Mr. Chairman, but we'll get you an answer to that.
Yeah,
The whole idea is that they're going to be stored there prior to being auctioned. I would dare say that there isn't going to be any repair going on.
All right, are there any other questions by the board?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I just have one quick question. This is Karen Dunn. I know they stated that it's mostly automobiles and rarely trucks. Will there be any campers or motorhomes being stored there?
I'm told there could be some light commercial, but again, I'm not quite sure what comes under light commercial. Sounds to me as if it may or may not be, campers and the like. I mean, I view light commercial as like those Mercedes, trucks that we see. Right. Yeah. So that's the best answer I can give you. We can give you a fuller answer within the FEIS.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Raitt, you
Yes.
have another question you want to ask?
Yes, I have a couple of questions. Going back to the issue with the Suffolk County Water Authority, the last letter that they sent that, made us go into the supplemental review is a pretty strongly worded letter about their concerns about the location next to their well field. So at this point in time, what have they said regarding the latest proposed technology? Have you heard anything back from them?
No, we have not. And as you know, the DSEIS was circulated, and we have not heard anything back from the Water Authority. And that may be because we've responded in a very, very positive and aggressive way in proposing this stormwater treatment facility. But we have not, matter of fact, I checked with Pete Fontaine this afternoon, he hadn't received anything.
I have another question. So once the water's been recharged, it'll get recharged into the ground. And how long will it take to get to the well field from there?
I will attempt to answer that. Because of the location of the recharge basin, they fall into that capture zone somewhere in the order of 0 to 2 to 5, somewhere.
So it's in that. Okay,
Yeah,
just making sure that's what it is. Okay, and
I
then
will caution, I was going to add earlier, just related to those 0 to 2, it's not an exact line. If you fall on this side, it's 2. There are so many statistical factors to go into it. So it's a general guidance. And I think that's an important factor because all of the industrial complex around there has the potential to reach this well field. And again, my sense is that this is the best that can be offered at this point to protect the wells from the site.
And if I could just tag on to that, Ms. Wright, excuse me, all of what James said considered, the location of the leaching fields has been oriented furthest away from the well field on the site as possible, meaning towards the north west portion of the site, as far away from the well field as possible.
Well, one of my concerns was we're talking about having a monitoring well, but once something gets picked up in the monitoring well, the damage is done. So it doesn't necessarily seem like the best it's a safeguard, I understand, but it doesn't necessarily seem like the best safeguard, considering you're talking about between 0 and 5 years before whatever's in the ground is in drinking water. That's not a long time to remedy that situation.
Yeah, if I could just speak on that, the water that's going to be coming out of this treatment system is going to be cleaner than the water that's going into those drinking water wells. It's not going to have 1,4-dioxane. It's not going to have PFAS. it's going to be extremely clean. So I don't see the concern there.
The applicant's still willing to install the monitoring well if it's absolutely needed, but I think the point that Dr. Woodard just made is it's already going through the treatment regardless of that monitoring.
Yes, and I think we all understand that that this is, you know, cutting edge technology. I think that's almost part of the problem is that we don't have it on Long Island. We don't have a situation that we can draw from necessarily locally that says under these conditions and for a storage, you know, car storage of this type that we have, you know, that kind of firsthand knowledge. I mean, I'm actually familiar with the system. I know that they use it for sewage treatment also, but maybe not this particular situation. So I think that's some of the concern.
Well, Long Island, Suffolk County, I do believe, has installed the advanced oxidation for 1,4-dioxane, and I'm also quite sure the granular activated carbon for PFAS. So I think,
correct.
Yes. Is that correct? Yeah.
The conversation that I guess then when we were talking, when Beth was asking you specifically, we understand that they're using this technology on Long Island, but are they using it for, and maybe there's not a differential from what I'm asking, but for a site like this, where you have junk vehicles, where there may be more spillage, let me say, or more going into the ground, that's the whole issue. Has it been used very specifically for this type of use?
No, because what's happening is nothing's being done at these other sites. So this is a huge step in the right direction to apply technology that is being successfully used on Long Island to treat these contaminants, and now to have a car lot like this where typically there's no treatment, or if anything, it's just a hydrodynamic separator, to have this very advanced treatment system to remove even the emerging contaminants, where the regulations just hit New York State August 1st, I think it was. So this is pretty cutting edge, and I think it's a really good thing. I really do.
Okay, and then I guess that's the final thing that I wanted to bring up is when we're talking about some of the other locations and what's happening in this particular area. We already went over the fact that the other storage lot is an illegal use, and that the other lot, I guess the Odessa site, was approved 10, 15 years ago. So I want to make note of that as far as what's happening in the area.
This is Mike Lynch. I just want to jump in. One other use, Ms. Rate, that also, it's in my report, but wasn't brought up. There's the new Montauk bus storage facility was recently approved, and that's currently under construction just north of this property on Sills. And I don't believe there's any sort of system, you know, anywhere near what's proposed on this property.
Well, is it
for ground water protection?
I'm not sure that it's the location of it near the wells would warrant it. I mean, the technology that we're proposing, part of the reason that we're here, and this is the technology that you're proposing, is because of the location to the wells. If it was in a different location, the concerns wouldn't be the same.
Yeah, it's immediately north of baseball heaven. It just, you know, as part of the, again, other nearby motor vehicle storage facilities, in that this is, I understand what you're getting at with respect to the wells, but I just wanted to point that out because that wasn't brought out earlier in my testimony.
I might add on the relative to that question about this facility is up gradient is the term we would use. But I think going back to what I said about the capture zones not being a finite line, any of the sites within those various capture zones could be impactful. And I think, you know, we typically, unfortunately, in our legacy of industrial development after the post-war, you know, a lot of what myself and our you know, my peers in this industry fight is legacy leakages and spills that happen 20, 30 years from now. So unfortunately, I think we're all in this together, and I think all of those industrial sites and even some of the residences that are in that A1 that were described, you know, the homeowner that dumps pesticide because they don't want to take it to the stop facility is equally as of a concern to Suffolk County in that respect.
Can I ask a question, Counselor? The structural, the underground piping that's going to catch all of the contaminants, the catch basins, is that, once the site is completed, the structural integrity, is that being able to be visibly monitored? In other words, there's always a possibility in the wintertime where you get some freeze up where a pipe will burst. So all of this contaminant could be leaking into the ground prior to even going into the leaching system.
So the catch basins themselves are closed units. They're cast in place concrete. They're units that are consistently used everywhere. To say that there might be some sort of a hairline crack, I mean, again, we could probably use some sort of a liner on the bottom of a basin. But you know, these have been proven solid units, and they convey water all across. You know,
but there's still piping amongst
and there is
all of them.
and there are piping connected to them, and we can look at the different options of piping. I mean, they're 15-inch. I think they're reinforced concrete, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, structural integrity. I mean,
Yeah,
you got ground movement, shifting, things like that. They cause some kind of.
And they're also, well, they're below frost line. So, you know, for that fact, they're always going to be at constant temperature. So we shouldn't have any problems with that. But, you know, to point taken, you know, obviously this entire system is predicated on the fact that the water is conveying from point to point to the end to tree. So if there's any other thing that we could look, we'll look into it.
Okay.
I wanted to answer one question that Mr. Zarcone asked earlier, and I said I would look it up. The concrete pad for the treatment unit is 7,000 square feet. It's 70 by 100.
Thank you.
Okay. No other questions by the board?
I do have one other question, Mr. Chairman. This is Pete Zarcone. I just want to do a follow-up. This question was already asked twice, but I just want to add to it if I could. It's in regards to the vehicle storage again. Are we looking at any boats or large vehicles? Because they do carry a lot of fuel, and that's one of my concerns.
My knowledge, Mr. Zarcone, no, but you know, we'll get you an answer. To my knowledge, no.
Right. I mean,
I'll get you an answer.
we're talking about possible, you know, leakage and stuff like that. And when you start putting a boat in, which would carry 100 gallons of fuel or better, you know, I'd just like to know the answers to that before we move forward with this.
We'll get you an answer.
Thank you.
All right. There's no other questions. I'm going to ask Ms. Kelly for a motion.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to close the public hearing on the DEIS with the public comment period left open until the close of business on Wednesday, October 14th, 2020. The site plan hearing is left open to an open date.
Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Kelly,
Chairman, this is Pete Zarcone. I'll second that motion.
second by Mr. Zarcone. Mr. Walutis?
Vote aye, yes.
Ms. Dunn?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Rose?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate your time and your expertise, and continue this in the future.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman.
Have a good
Okay.
night.
Have a good night.
Thank you very much.
Councilor Rate, are you there? Councilor Rate? Ms. Rate?
Yes, yes.
Did the applicant on number 4 ever come back?
Here. Nope.
All right, so I'm going to go back to item number 1. We'll hold that to a date certain of October 19th. Okay?
What, number 4?
Number 4.
It was number 4 that they didn't show up.
Number 1 also.
No, number 1 was,
No, that Ms.
Oh, right.
Gennaro. Yeah.
Right, of course.
Although, on item number 4, I mean, that was I don't even know if we need the applicant to be
They're
present.
just
on
moving the fence.
it. Excuse me?
They're just moving a fence.
Yeah, I mean, it's done already, right?
I don't know if it's done, but
But
up
the
to you.
request was made for legitimate reasons, I believe, for the snow.
it was for the snow removal, yes.
All
I
right,
mean,
so,
we opened it, we can make a decision on it.
We've got to close it first.
Okay, so I need a motion on item number 4 to close it, put on decision calendar. Ms. Kelly?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to close this public hearing and place this matter on the decision calendar.
Motion to close by Ms. Kelly,
Mr. Chairman, this is Pete Zarcone. I'll second that motion.
second by Mr. Zarcone. Mr. Walutis?
Aye.
Ms. Dunn?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Rose?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. I can go back to item number 1.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve this application to increase clearing limits from 36% to 53% with staff recommendations 1 through 4, last dated October 20th, not October, September, is it August 20th? 8/20/2020 as covenants and conditions of the approval.
Well, we want to be the stenographer on this one. Okay. Motion by Ms. Dunn,
I'll second that motion, Mr. Chairman. This is Richard Smith.
second by Mr. Smith. Mr. Zarcone?
I vote aye.
Ms. Kelly?
I vote aye.
Mr. Walutis?
Aye.
Mr. Rose?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries 7-0. Item number 2, Shiloh Manor, lot number 1, East Hatch Road.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to approve this application, subject to staff recommendations number 1 through 7, last revised 7/2020, as covenants and conditions of the approval.
Motion by Ms. Kelly,
Mr. Chairman, this is Pete Zarcone. I'll second that motion.
second by Mr. Zarcone. Mr. Walutis?
Aye.
Ms. Dunn?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Rose?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Sal John Manor, lot number 4 at Center Ridge.
Mr. Chairman, this is John Rose. I make a motion to approve the applicant's request to increase clearing limits at 7 South John Court in Center Ridge from 50% to 90%, along with all staff recommendations numbering 1 through 4, last reviewed on August 24th, 2020, as covenants and conditions of the approval.
Motion by Mr. Rose,
I'll second that.
second by Mr. Smith. Mr. Zarcone?
I vote aye.
Ms. Kelly?
I vote aye.
Mr. Walutis?
Aye.
Ms. Dunn?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries 7-0. Item number 4. Somewhere.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to approve this application, subject to staff recommendations number 1 and 2, last revised 8/12/2020, as covenants and conditions of the approval.
All right, motion by Ms. Kelly,
Mr. Chairman, this is Pete Zarcone. I'll second that motion.
second by Mr. Zarcone. Mr. Walutis?
I vote aye.
Ms. Dunn?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Rose?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries 7-0. Item number 5, the Meadows at Yaphank, Phase 1B at Yaphank.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the revised Village Green Stormwater Design Modification as covenants and conditions of the approval.
Motion by Ms. Kelly,
Mr. Chairman, this is Pete Zarcone. I'll second that motion.
second by Mr. Zarcone. Mr. Walutis?
Aye.
Dunn?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Rose?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion
Mr.
carries
Chairman, can I ask one quick question on that? Were there staff comments that you mentioned, Pat, too? Were there staff comments with that motion?
That'd be Ms. Kelly.
I mean, Ms. Kelly, sorry.
Do you mean the ones
No,
at the
it
Meadows?
was just a motion,
Yeah, well, I mean,
yes.
did you mention? I didn't hear it. That's why I'm asking.
There-
Yeah, I think she was broken up. She did say all staff comments.
It was read
Okay.
into the record as received.
Thank you.
There were no staff comments on number 5. It was just to approve it. There were no conditions. Let me.
All right, just want to make sure. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Item number 6, Silas Carter Road at Manorville. Do we need the secret determination on this?
Yes.
Okay, can I have a secret determination on Silas Carter Road?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for a negative secret declaration.
Motion for neg deck by Ms. Dunn,
Second, Richard Smith.
second by Mr. Smith. Mr. Zarcone?
I vote aye.
Ms. Kelly?
I vote aye.
Mr. Walutis?
Aye.
Mr. Rose?
I vote aye.
Chair votes aye. Can I have a motion?
I'd like to make a further motion to approve this application to construct 400 lineal feet of Silas Carter right-of-way for access to 4 single-family homes with 12, staff recommendations, last dated August 25th, 2020, as covenants and conditions of the approval.
Okay, motion by Ms. Dunn,
I'll second that motion,
second by
Richard
Mr.
Smith.
Smith. Mr. Zarcone,
I vote aye.
Ms. Kelly,
I vote aye.
Mr. Walutis,
Aye.
Mr. Rose,
Aye.
chair votes aye, so moved. Item number 7 is being held to October 19th. The motion was made on Yap Bank Gordo. On decision calendar, Counselor, we're working on the findings on that yet?
Yes, I'll get them done for the next one.
Okay, so we'll do that on decision calendar. Anything the board would like to ask before we adjourn?
We just want to let everybody know that there's no meeting on October 5th,
I mentioned that earlier.
so the public knows.
Okay, the meeting for October 5th, 2020 for the planning board has been canceled. The next meeting will be on October 19th, 2020. Is there anything the board would like to discuss before we adjourn? May I have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman, this is Board Member Pete Zarcone. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Zarcone to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second Steve Walutis.
Second, Mr. Walutis, Ms. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Rose,
Aye.
Ms. Dunn.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.